Hey, what's up, guys? We have Matthew Adams. He is running for state assembly up in the Central Coast, and he also used to be a comedian. So, how's it going? How are you doing today, Matthew?
Doing great, Micah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, running for state assembly in District 9, which is in Central Valley, California, so around Lodi, Galt, Manteca, that sort of area. If anyone listening is in California, is familiar with the area, that's where I'm at and what I'm running for, and very excited to get into that and whatever other topics we can cover today.
Yeah, District 9 reminds me of, or it is the exact name of that movie, right?
Sure
That
is.
dystopian movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know nothing about the politics stuff, so even like just pronouncing what you were running for was, I thought I was gonna, get confused on that. But yeah, let's just start with you, who you are, and then we'll go from there and everything about you and what you want to talk about and everything. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
which
So
you just went over the politics, but you can go over whatever else you want to go over too.
we are multifaceted as humans. That's right. We're not defined by our current job, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I hope not.
so yeah. So I have been involved in politics basically since college. I graduated from Sacramento State about 8 years ago now with a degree in government. And since then, I have worked in various political campaigns. I've been field organizer, field director, and campaign manager for various campaigns here in the Central Valley and also in the Bay Area, all Democratic at various levels. I've been a teacher when there's no campaigns on because campaigns are kind of a seasonal job, right? So there's a lot of time where there's just no employment. So I've been more recently focused on full-time teaching. I've been teaching high school and middle school in the area for the last couple of years. And on top of all of that, in my evenings, I have until recently been an improv comedian in Sacramento for a company called Comedy Sports, which has been really fun and really cool.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I want to start with the comedy stuff. I was debating about what to start with first, but I think I'm a little bit more into the comedy scene. I've actually gotten pretty into the comedy scene recently, and it's not necessarily for the comedians necessarily. It's actually for the people who make fun of the comedians. Like
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of this guy Red Bar. He's pretty
no.
he's pretty wild. Like it's kind of like shock jock type stuff, Howard like old Howard Stern type stuff, but he goes over all the comedians and then he like will play clips and then kind of like make fun of them. And there's other
Mm,
YouTube channels that like just pop up talking about what's going on in the comedy world. And I like the ones that tend to kind of go after them because I'm not super into a lot of the modern day comedy. Like you were saying, it kind of seemed like it is or was a liberal thing. And now it's kind of with Joe Rogan, it's kind of morphed into this whole Republican kind of thing. So I wonder what you think of the current state of comedy and who are some of your favorites and stuff.
sure. Yeah, I think as everything has gotten more politicized in our culture, comedy obviously has as well. I mean, we've seen the whole kerfuffle with the late night shows and what's getting ratings and what's getting canceled because of what and who's becoming more popular. And I mean, it's like you say, I think before, it was either leaning to the left, like a lot of Hollywood, or kind of apolitical. People just wouldn't talk about politics at all. Now, the most popular late night shows are the ones that get into politics, right? I mean, before Stephen Colbert was canceled, and probably even more so now, he was like the most popular of the network shows, but the real most popular show in late night was on Fox News, right? They had Gutfeld as like the real king of late night comedy now, and he's obviously super Republican, and they're talking about all that stuff a lot more. It's interesting how that has developed. Uh, what I did was incredibly non-political. Like I said, I worked for Comedy Sports, which is like a nationwide, or I guess technically worldwide franchise of improv theaters that was our whole appeal was we were family friendly stuff. Like if you said anything that went too far off the rails, you got a brown paper bag placed over your head to kind of like shame you. It's like, no, we got kids here. Like everything's kind of so I never really got into that in any of my comedy. And I think that's kind of reflected like who some of my favorite comedians are. Jerry Seinfeld's probably my goat. I mean, he's just there's a reason his show is as popular as it was. Uh, John Mulaney's another really good one that like it's those guys I think what they really get into a lot is the storytelling and obviously comedy is all about storytelling. That's why the podcast format has been so good for comedy because that's what podcasts are is people telling stories and what's engaging. And I think it's interesting what's happened to comedy because everything's gotten politicized, but I think that's kind of a byproduct of just what's happening in the world.
Yeah, what do you think about like the people? It seems like Joe Rogan, like I said, and like Shane Gillis, Tony
Hmm.
Hinchcliffe, that whole group is kind of almost hijacked the whole comedy world. What do you think of all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think what it goes to show is like as much as companies will talk about like how concerned they are about DEI or cancel culture or woke culture killing, the businesses and whatever, um, there's a lot of guys that have been canceled that are like the most popular people right now. I mean, people forget Shane Gillis was, maybe people don't forget, but like he was fired from Saturday Night Live, right? Because he had those racist posts come up and or from his podcast, right? And now his podcast is one of the most popular in the world, and SNL brought him back. It's, I think, completely correct to say it's a takeover here, right? You can be concerned about all of that stuff and say to your donors or your audience that, look, we're not going to sell out or we're not going to go super political, but they do and they have to because that's what the people are demanding. And there's a reason that, I mean, Trump got elected, right? He's not a comedian, but he might as well be, right? His rally speeches, a lot of the stuff that he says, a lot of Trump isms have just become common, like linguistic phrases that people say all the time. There's a reason for that. Comedy is a language that speaks to everybody. If you're able to laugh, you're able to break down a lot of barriers. And that's what politicians and any person trying to win you over on any sort of thing, salespeople, whatever, they're all trying to break down your barriers. If you can basically say anything once you've got somebody. And that I think is what Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan are kind of saying. Like, I think what they do is you can go back and forth on how harmful a podcast episode is. I think some of it is overblown, some of it are real concerns depending on what episode you're looking at. But the bedwetting, pearl clutching stuff about comedy is just not going to get anybody anywhere. They're popular and people love them, and I think we kind of have to grapple with what what the new reality is.
Yeah, like you mean the new reality being them, basically? Like,
Basically, that's what I'm saying. Like you're saying, it's a takeover. Like to be a popular comedian right now, you have to be political, and it's very rare that like the most popular are the liberal comedians. It's the conservative comedians that are the most popular because they're less concerned about like am I saying the right thing? People can tell if you're authentic or not. And there's that whole thing about like Trump says what he says what he means and he speaks right from the heart and like whether that's true or not, right? I mean, and it's not because he's documented to be like one of the most lying presidents of all time, right? Setting all that aside, people believe he is being honest. People believe a lot of these conservative comedians are being honest because they're not fact checking themselves. They're not saying, am I going to offend anybody before I say anything? And that is something that just lets people connect with them a lot more. As somebody who's talked to a lot of people in a lot of different spaces when I'm a comedian and when I'm working in politics, authenticity is the first thing that people look for when they're talking to you. If they sense that you're hiding something, even if you're just trying to be more polite, or if you're like internally you're just thinking, I want to get what I'm going to say before I say it because I don't want to come across the wrong way. People read into that stuff and they think you're lying to them and then they don't want anything to do with you. And conservative comedians have really cornered the market on just just talk, just go, and then figure out the rest later. And that's made them the
yeah,
most successful.
yeah. And I think that there's kind of a, I think that that is kind of a problem with liberal comedians, and that is kind of a reason why Republican comedians, like you're saying, like you just said, pretty much are doing better is because they're like Joe Rogan will just go on there and pretty much say anything
Hmm.
and everything, and it's like you might get in trouble for a short period of time, but over the long run, it actually makes you like Tony Hinchcliffe. Like
Yeah.
he said, now at least two, he's gotten canceled for two, basically racist things, and now he's like the
Yeah.
most one of the most popular comedians. So it's like I almost think that like as a liberal, you almost kind of have to lean into it and kind of be a little bit more um raunchy or whatever, which is kind of weird because I kind of feel like liberals used to be the more, I don't know what the right word is, not necessarily raunchy, but like you know,
Yeah.
saying
Blue
crazy,
collar. Yeah.
yeah, just saying crazy shit. And now
Yeah.
it's kind of shifted. Um
I think in a lot of ways. Yeah. And you look at who are the most famous, like liberal comedians right now. It's like John Oliver, right, who is on HBO and gets to do absolutely crazy stuff and say, he delivers a lot of like really factual, kind of boring information, but also do like crazy over the top stunts and bring in like all these silly animals and stuff. And like, that's what people like, is like people being free with their words and being able to show who they are as people. People hate Jimmy Fallon because he is super inauthentic. He fake laughs all the time. And when he takes a stance one way or the other, it's like, I don't really think this guy actually believes anything. I think he's just kind of saying whatever to chase the headlines. People can sense that kind of stuff. And liberal comedians, unless I think John Oliver's like one of the few like established liberal comedians that's really getting it right. If you want to look at like who are the more successful liberal comedians, it's like the people on Twitch that are doing a lot of this stuff, people in their rooms, people who have all these gatekeepers and everything, no barriers between them, right? They're just talking. And that's why we've seen like, not in the comedic sense, but in the political sense, Zoran Mondani do so well because people think he's speaking authentically to them. He's doing his TikToks, he's doing big scavenger hunts in the city of New York, and people like that stuff and they think it's fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard that name. Are we talking about the mayor of New York or
Yeah,
no?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
he's
okay.
probably going to win the mayor race in New York. He just won the Democratic primary, and New York's a Democratic city, so odds are he's going to become the next mayor of New York City, Zoran
Yeah,
Mondani.
so he's not like a comedian, but you're saying he's just kind of like being authentic
Yeah,
with what
and
he's doing, right?
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like Trump has had the quarter market on for years. Is he's the authentic guy? People believe what he says, despite all the evidence, because of the way he speaks and the way he free flows and he's funny. All that stuff matters to people, and you just don't see a lot of that. So a lot of people just aren't successful if they don't have it. And a lot of the liberal comedians are more concerned about other things rather than authenticity. They're more concerned about valuable things, right? Like being factual, making sure that they don't say something that they'll later have to recant or come back from. And unfortunately, that just isn't connecting with people, which is a little sad, but it is what it is.
Well, especially with comedy, because I feel like with comedy you kind of have to like be punchy and you kind of have to say shit that like kind of almost like offends people, or it's like, oh wow, I can't believe he just said that. Because if you're not, if everything's just super safe, it's not as much fun,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So even though I do obviously have like a problem when I'm listening to, a comedian who is saying raunchy stuff,
Hmm.
but I think that you almost in comedy, it's kind of like you kind of have to like toe that line, and I think that there is a way to do it,
There
but I think it
is.
might be hard. And also, I think that a lot of these guys could get in trouble with Trump. Like obviously he lies and stuff, but I do feel like to a certain extent, like he's like kind of shooting from the hip, where it's like, I think he's kind of like he is saying how he feels or like what he's thinking, but it's just not true a lot of the times, or it's like,
Yes.
he doesn't really, which makes it almost even worse. But do you feel like with Trump, when people say he's funny, do you feel like he's intentionally being funny, or do you think it's just unintentional and like, which
Oh yeah.
almost, yeah, you do
I
think it's being funny?
I think he's intentionally being funny. There's a reason he had one of the top rated shows on network television for years, right? The Apprentice is popular because he's a character and he's very charming. A lot of people who have met him think he's a funny guy. And you look back at his old media stuff, and he's funny, and he's been on SNL even before he was a presidential candidate, right? Because they knew he'd be a good host, and he's you know I'm friends with a lot of Democrats. Obviously, I am a Democrat myself, but I'll tell anybody, I think Trump is the funniest president we've ever had because he's just a really that's one of his gifts is that he's comedic. He's got a lot of other problems, truly a lot of other faults, but I think he's a genuinely funny guy. But to go back to what you said about like there is a way to do like some of this stuff that's not raunchy or whatever. So, like I said, when I did comedy, I was at a family-friendly establishment for years, and like kids would come in and we'd have like a whole high school program and stuff. So we were like barred from being raunchy, right? And it was a tough adjustment for a lot of people to be like, I want to be free flowing. I want to speak from the heart or shoot from the hip and do comedy. But like there's these limits placed on us, so we have to be like family friendly and all of that stuff. What I found was the best thing for people in those kind of situations. One of the first rules they teach you in comedy, right? Is like don't try to be funny. Just like say something, do something, and then like the funny will find it. Like the audience will find what's funny in what you're doing um, if you're putting yourself out there. Because they, especially in comedy, people in the audience are there because they want to laugh and they want to have a good time. So you don't need to worry about getting them in the right mood for comedy or anything like that. Just go and the rest will figure itself out. The less people thought about like all the rules and everything that were being placed on them, and the more they just got like the muscle memory of what we were doing. And improv is great because you rely on the other people in your team, like it's all collaborative stuff. The less you worry about trying to fit into whatever box, the more natural everything is. And then you just, the funny finds itself in that sense. So I think, and look, I mean, I wasn't a super professional, high level comedian, right? I was getting paid to do comedy, but it wasn't like at anywhere where I was like incredibly popular. But I would think for anybody that is trying to be more successful in the modern era and is a liberal and is very concerned about like how do I fit into all of these different places and what if I do this or that? I think really just you have to just you can't worry about that because as soon as you do, then you're less focused on what you're doing and you lose your audience.
Yeah, well, I think part of the problem is like I said, and like what you just said with your job is a lot of the liberal comedians are afraid that they're gonna like literally get canceled for saying. I mean, you say the wrong thing and like you're pretty much canceled. With the
Yeah.
Republicans don't have that problem, and I think that the liberals. I mean, at this point, it seems kind of like the liberal. It's kind of sad to say, but it almost seems like the liberal movement isn't as quite as woke or whatever you want to call it as it used to be. It's like you said, they've kind
Hmm.
of just accepted it. Like Trump won, and I guess they kind of won the whole
Yeah,
Congress or whatever, right? So
yeah,
they're like
they
fully in charge, kind
they
of, right?
started the culture war and they knew they could win it because Democrats and liberals weren't really prepared to fight on that turf. And now everything is part of the culture war because Republicans know that that's their advantage. So cookies are political, jeans are political, everything is political. And it's, Cracker Barrel's political. Like everything is now woke. And if you push back on it and say, like, this has nothing to do with politics, then I mean, there's the old adage of like, if you're playing defense or if you have to explain yourself, you're already losing. Just throw out a bunch of stuff, is what the Republicans are doing. Just make sure that everybody is having to play defense whenever they're talking to you, and you can just keep throwing out stuff and move on to the next topic. You may lose like five of the battles, but then you win the next 20. And then it's like people remember that your side is winning and it's more fun to be on the winning side. And this stuff really snowballs. And it's just getting, it's getting ridiculous, all the stuff that we have to talk about now. It's just like, is the Cracker Barrel redesign really something that is like worthy of all of the discussion that has gotten the last couple of days? Probably not, but everyone's talking about it, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, is that even a woke thing? Like was it
No.
just getting rid of the guy they think is woke or what?
No,
What?
there's no political reason behind it, but like if you
But
say it
they're
enough
saying that
times, then
are
like
they, are they? I
yeah.
haven't really followed the news on that. Are they trying to say that it's a woke thing or something?
Yeah, they're saying it's like the general brand redesign, like losing your soul in corporation branding and like, tying it into like all the McDonald's are painted black now instead of being painted red or like
Oh, the what? The McDonald's?
yeah, like you never notice like last couple of decades or so, right? Like McDonald's and other fast food places, they're not as like colorful as they used to be. If you
I
drive
haven't
around
really
and you
noticed
look,
that.
yeah, like they used to be red and like bright and to attract kids and whatever. Now they're like a lot more corporate and bland because they're trying to attract like adults. They got rid of Ronald McDonald forever because like he, there's anti-clown stuff out there too, but they just weren't appealing to kids as much for whatever reason. And so there's like a whole, if you dig into it, there's like a whole conspiracy on like the woke corporate energies of like why are they really changing all of this stuff? Is it because they're trying to appeal to, X, Y, or Z? And it's ridiculous and it's stupid. But if you talk about it enough in the right circles, then people are going to agree with you, and we get these ridiculous culture war situations.
Well, I mean, do you think that it is BS, or do you think there is some truth to this that the companies actually are trying to go woke? And then, if they are trying to go woke, it's kind of like why it doesn't really seem like it's working, right? I mean,
It
or is it?
varies. So it's definitely ridiculous, but there's some truth to it. I think when Trump first got elected in 2016, I think there's a lot of panic in the markets because people didn't know what Trump was going to do, and everybody was against him on every establishment level, right? So it was bipartisan, like at certain levels that you were against Trump, right? So a lot of corporations felt very safe saying the most popular thing that our consumers want is to take a stance against Trump. So Pride Month merch, we're putting all that up. We're gonna make sure that everybody knows we support, Asian people during AIPI month, right? Like all of that stuff that no longer is the case because Trump won again. And so it's kind of not really sure what the corporate line is one way or the other. We got corporations like Budweiser, which were a little late on adopting the liberal idealisms and had the trans influencer support their beer in like one ad, and it blew up and they lost so much money. And then now they've pivoted hardcore to the right, but they already lost the battle, so nobody cares about that. And then you get corporations like Target that said, we're not going to focus on any DEI stuff anymore. We're getting rid of our Pride Month merch. And then liberals got very upset at them and they lost a bunch of money. So I think it just comes down to corporations needing to know their audience and not trying to read too much into the general political field or ether right now. You know who buys your stuff and why they support you and what they care about. Don't try and read like the general trends, is what I would say to these companies, because you know your audience better than anybody else. A lot of these times, these culture war situations aren't something that they care about. You wading into it is just going to make them not like you one way or the other. So
Yeah.
does it punish a corporation for being woke, or does it punish a corporation for going the other way? It depends.
Yeah, it just doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't seem like a good idea to play that game. And even if you do play that game, I mean, obviously, I don't. I'm not an expert in marketing or whatever, but like if you do play that game, you got to be aware that like okay, 50% of the, pretty much 50% of the country will not like what you're doing, and then 50% may. But the
Hmm.
problem is that I'm hearing a lot by people from people like Sam Harris and Bill Maher, and are
Hmm.
that like there's not enough people who are kind of like anti woke or whatever those people. There's not enough people who really care enough about like, sadly, and maybe there is, but it's like there's not enough. Maybe there's enough people who care about the trans community, and I think it's
Hmm.
so. I think it's a good thing that these companies are doing this. Like, I work at Amazon, and like when I see them have like the pride flag across their wall or whatever, I'm like, hey, at least the country's like moving in the right direction. But then
Yeah.
I'm also kind of like, but is it? Well, one, are they just doing this for some sort of marketing ploy, which is total bullshit? But then
Hmm.
two, is it really even a good idea for them to even be playing this game? Because, like I just said, same thing with Budweiser, like you said. Like, yeah, that's cool that they got Dylan Mulvaney and to do the ad or whatever, but at the same time, it just kind of seems like a bad idea to me. And same thing on the opposite side with Sydney Sweeney. I thought the ad was kind of dumb with American Eagle, but I'm kind of like, not only, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like, I just thought it was. I didn't necessarily think that it was. I don't even know if that was their intent to be like
Right.
racist or Nazis or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a dumb idea. Like it's like you have some hot chick who's just essentially like bragging about herself, and
Yeah.
it's a stupid like pun. Um, so when there was a backlash to it with my fiance, I was kind of like, well, I don't really necessarily think that they're being Nazis, but I also think that it's a bad idea. I mean, what do you think about that one? Like, do you think there is any truth to them actually literally wanting to be come off as Nazis, or like, do you think they just didn't even realize what they were doing? And like my fiance said that they have such a huge, massive
Yeah.
marketing department that how did they not know that this would come off that way, right?
Yeah. It's tricky with that one because I was in the same boat of like, I don't think they were actively trying to be Nazis because I think as bad as things are politically right now in the
That's
country,
as bad as it gets. I mean,
yeah,
it's like
yeah, Nazis still don't sell. People aren't gonna say like, "Oh man, the Nazis got jeans, I gotta buy from them." Like I don't think
hopefully
that was their
even
intent.
Republicans hopefully wouldn't be on that side, I hope, but
I think
some.
so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, However, what is concerning is once there was the backlash, I think if you or I were in this situation and one of our projects got declared like the next coming of Adolf Hitler, we'd be like, no, 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 no. I definitely didn't intend to do that. my bad. Let's see what we can do to clear up this up. They didn't do that. Like they did a
Yeah.
response where they're just like, we're sorry. Basically, it was like a we're sorry you're offended kind of thing, but we're standing by Sydney Sweeney and we're standing by our ad, which was that was a little concerning. I'm just like, even if that wasn't their intent, they're definitely okay with the business that is now being generated because of the implication, which is I think where they get in trouble. And that goes back to what you're saying of like when these companies start playing the game, I think that's when it gets dangerous. Because if you look at the trends, it actually costs them a lot of money in terms of like now they're being boycotted by people. Now that that's a political product, a lot of people are just less comfortable being in close collaboration with American Eagle because the average person doesn't want to be political. The average person just wants to buy pants, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And so when companies
It's
start
stupid.
playing these games and they don't actually like believe one thing or the other, like their consumers can kind of tell that stuff. And it's like, you're just getting us wrapped into stuff that we didn't want to be in. So if a company genuinely, like the board or their customers genuinely support LGBTQ plus or genuinely support diversity, then I think by all means they should lean into that. And again, it just comes back to the authenticity thing. Be real with your customers, be real with what message you're putting out there. And then if something comes out that it's like, we don't want to be attached to this, then stand on that. And if you do want to be attached to it, stand on that. They're in the terrible no man's zone here.
Yeah. Well, do you think it's gonna? What's weird is I feel like I saw something that said their sales have gone down, but then I like literally just saw that I didn't I usually don't read the full article, which I know it's like I probably should, but I'll see the
Yeah, yeah.
headline. So it's like I saw their sales went down, but then I just like literally today or something saw that their sales are up, but Trump's tariffs are going to like bring them down or something like that. So it's like I don't know what is what. Like
Yeah, it's hard to tell with the tariffs what's going to be affected by that because nothing's really made in America anymore, right? So like even if something's like fastened in America or like compiled in America, all the shipping stuff is coming from some other country, and then that's the stuff that's going to be killer. So who knows what's going to happen there? It's tough.
yeah, so do you know how they're doing uh now? I mean, it sounds like by what you were saying, like they're not doing good
Yeah, I
overall now
mean,
from that ad.
yeah, I mean, disclaimer, obviously I'm not an expert in the business aspect of all this, but from the articles that I've read and the coverage of it, I think they're going to stick with this campaign because it's getting eyes on them, but it's not helping their sales. They are probably not going to make money off of this in the long term, but I guess who knows?
Yeah. Do you know if any of this has worked out for anyone, really?
I mean, I can't imagine it being successful in the future if it because it really hasn't worked in the past. I like I said, I think the two major ones right now are like I know Target just got into a bunch of trouble because they tried to do this sort of thing. And then, I mean, Budweiser was how many years ago at this point? People are still talking about it and they're still losing money, even though they've pivoted hardcore the other way now with their advertising, or at least from what I've read. I haven't actually seen a Budweiser ad probably since then. I mean, other than like the Super Bowl or whatever, but from what I've heard, like they're trying to make themselves more appealing to conservatives and it just hasn't worked. I think by and large, again, consumers just don't want to have anything to do with politics. So playing the game, trying to read the moment is just not doing anybody any favors.
Especially playing the racist game with
Yes.
jeans, like even if they, like you said, even if they didn't intend to do that, they should have just said, sorry, we didn't mean to do that, our bad.
Yeah.
But then it's like there's the whole thing of like, um, bad press is good press. So maybe their goal is just to get people like talking about it forever and pissed off. And maybe they want people pissed off because it's like it's going to be in people's minds. I mean,
It's hard to say. Yeah.
yeah, no
And
one really
then
knows, right?
And then you do really get into the dangerous aspect of if people think you actually supporting Nazis, I do think that's going to stick with people a lot more than any positive attention you may generate of anyone who hadn't heard of American Eagle or is like, oh, I'm going to buy them because it's going to piss off the libs or all of that stuff. That the long-term effects are just not good. And I also want to say, like, anything that they do that is going to hurt people, right? Obviously, that's a negative. And I think any company would probably agree that it's like, it's probably not good for our brand if people get hurt over this stuff. If people actually start going out and committing race crimes, if people actually go out and start beating each other up because they think white is better, or they got good genes or all that stuff, right? And on the flip side, if a company does not want to support LGBTQ plus, I think that's also very that's long term, I think that's going to be harmful for companies too, because by and large, most people in America do support LGBTQ plus, even if, they haven't met anybody who is. A lot of people have, right? By and large, people are opposed to anti-LGBTQ efforts in government, in schools. Overall, people don't support that kind of stuff. Companies that are going the other way on that, I mean, it's definitely hurting people and it's like making them less popular. So that's another thing that's like, I think probably not going to be super beneficial for these companies or anybody in the future. But it depends where you are, I guess, right? Because there's certain pockets of the country where that stuff is very alive and well, and they really do love their homophobia. But by and large, it's just not America anymore.
Yeah, I mean, are there certain companies that have gone anti-LGBTQ
Well,
plus?
Budweiser, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is like they
Well,
completely
I don't know if
denounced
that.
that advertising and they don't
Oh,
do Pride stuff
did they?
anymore. Yeah.
Did they? Did they totally denounced it?
They did. They did. They said like we were wrong to include that, and we try not to be political in the future. And I mean, their whole thing was pathetic because really they did like that was one of like 12 ads that they put out at the same time. That was like only online and targeted towards certain people. Like again, it wasn't even the ad itself, it's the response that gets these people in trouble because they're trying to overcorrect one way or the other. That it leads them to have these moments where it's like, one, I don't know what you believe anymore, and you're clearly just selling out somebody to try and get ahead, and that's what people hate.
Yeah. And well, that's the whole problem with companies, like in general, is it's like for whatever reason, I like just don't really like companies. I mean, I do have like a
Yeah,
like I don't really like Amazon. I don't really like Walmart. I don't like, and I don't really trust them. I think this is part of it. Like you just kind of get this vibe that they're full of shit, and it's like they
hmm,
treat their workers bad.
yeah,
They treat their kind of, I don't know, like they kind of treat customers bad, but then at the same time, they are like a really useful entity. Like Amazon is a really useful like company, and Walmart is. So it's like,
yeah. And that's how they're able to get away with all this stuff because it's like boycotts are so hard to organize and be effective. They have worked in the past, but they have to last a really long time and they have to reach like a critical mass of however many people to actually support them. That I don't know. I think there's a few ongoing boycotts that are somewhat successful. I know there's one against Starbucks, but because of their anti-union and people are trying to bring them down. And I know there was the one against Target as that sort of stuff. And uh, by and large, right, people are fine ditching companies, but it has to be a lot of people and it has to be for a very long time for any of this stuff to matter. Um, it can be done. People don't like companies by and large, as you're saying, right? It's like there's a few people that are like, I love Starbucks so much, and that's my personality. But I don't think that's the average American. I don't think it's the average person is defining themselves by what companies they love to shop at.
that would just be
Yeah,
dumb.
but
It
it's
is dumb. Yeah.
tricky. But it's tricky to leave a company that you really find value in, like your day-to-day life. Amazon is a great example of just like people always, when you ask them, like, do you love to support local business? Would you support, your mom and pop shops? They'd say, yes, of course I would, but not if it's going to cost them more or it's going to be inconvenient to them. And that's how Amazon continues to get away with all the stuff that Amazon's getting away with because as much as people love supporting local, they love paying less and they love getting their super fast delivery and they don't love leaving the house. So all that stuff, Amazon has all those things. Walmart the same way. They pay their workers basically nothing. They have terrible working conditions, but they're cheaper than almost any other big box store. So what are you going to do? Spend more money? How much do you really care about these things? And that's a hard thing for people to do because everyone's struggling already as it is, right? The people have less money than they did however many years back you want to go, right? Wages are not keeping up with increasing costs across the board. So what are people supposed to do? It's hard to be in that position. And then if your morals now have a price on them, again, it's just why people don't want to get political because there's a lot wrapped into that. It's going to ultimately end up costing you more. And that's a shame that people have to be in that position. Ultimately, that's really where like government should step in, that people aren't so beholden in our government to these corporations and they can just make them be better companies so we don't have to police them ourselves. it'd be great if there were laws in the books that made it so minimum wage was higher, so people could actually afford to work at Walmart or Amazon, or mandated breaks in a real enforceable way so people don't have to pee in bottles, right? But they don't do
Yeah.
that because all these corporations pay off all these politicians, including, at every level, every single level, the local level, all the way up to the top. There's bot politicians that make it so these laws don't change. And then now it's guys like us that have to say, like, I guess if I want to hurt Walmart or Amazon, I will have to make the choice not to shop there and also convince all my neighbors and also convince all my family. And then that's just not going to happen. So we're left holding the bag and feeling bad and having these stupid culture war discussions.
Yeah. Well, I think that like people really have, like you said, it's really hard to do a boycott, and even not only a boycott, but then like a employee boycott or whatever.
Yeah.
What would they
Yeah,
call
strike. Yeah.
a strike? Yeah. I think that people have more power than they think, and I think that if you could get enough people to do it, even if it's for like a day, if it's like,
Yeah.
hey, once a week, just don't shop at fucking Amazon or whatever. I mean, that would
Yeah.
I would imagine that would kind of like fuck with them pretty bad, and I think that's the like once a week, don't go into work, don't go into work on Monday,
Yeah.
or whatever day it is, and I'm all for that, mainly just for the fact that I am to a certain extent, and I've been in this. I think that's the main issue that I would say that I would have with the companies is how they treat the employees, right? Is there anything else that's an
Well, I mean,
issue, would you say? Like, I mean, there's obviously probably more shit they're doing, but the main thing is probably how they treat their employees. It just seems like going into like a work at Amazon or Walmart or any of these types of places, it's like dystopian. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like so brutal. And it's like,
it
can't we just
is.
make this a little bit better for, but then it's like, I don't know. Some people might say, no, you can't. Like, if you pay them more, like California upped the minimum wage to 20 or whatever it is now,
Yeah.
and that's becoming an issue for certain companies. So no, like you have to, these companies have to do it. But then it's like, meanwhile, you have Jeff Bezos is making billions and billions of dollars, and while
Yeah.
everyone else is barely surviving. So I
Yeah.
mean, would you say that's the main issue? Is just if they just fix, or is there other stuff going on too that they're doing? Like they're kind of like scamming taxes and stuff like that, and like
Oh, they're
shooting.
definitely doing that. They're definitely
Yeah,
scamming their taxes. And that ultimately does screw with everybody in the state, because that money's just not being repurposed for what it should be, welfare stuff, education stuff, roads, all that stuff could be money well spent that we're just not getting money from at all. The minimum
their
wage
accountants are
stuff,
basically just able to kind of like somehow sidestep the
yeah,
taxes. Yeah.
they're able to put like their official headquarters in tax havens, like more favorable states in the country, or like they'll go to, some island somewhere that won't make them charge whatever corporate tax, and all of their business will still be done where they've always done their business. But like for tax purposes, their headquarters will be somewhere else so they get away with it. And that's why like California can do whatever California is going to do, and they should, but real change isn't going to happen until like it's on the federal level because, as you said, California minimum wage is like around $20. Federal minimum wage is still like $7 in
Yeah.
most, and that's just, I mean, companies will move outside of California, and they have. I mean, I think, Tesla is one of the most prominent ones that moved like to Texas, and there's been a long history of California companies, tech companies moving to Texas or conservative states or Florida because they just don't have to pay those taxes. Ideally, it'd be nowhere in the country is like a tax haven, but that's just not the world we live in. It's not the country we live in. But you're right that people do have more power than they think. If they did want to organize a 1 day thing, or they did want to say, like, I'm taking a stand on this, people do notice in these corporations and they'll say, like, maybe, look, if our customers really want this, we're going to end up losing more money if we don't just bite the bullet and do these things that are going to cost us a little in the short term because long term we're going to lose these customers. That's what it's going to have to take. And again, it's a shame that it does fall to the average people because that shouldn't have to be our job, but it is, and that's the world we've been living in for a long time. And that's the only way a lot of this change happens is from the people. And that's who knows what the next successful endeavor will be there, but I think people are getting pretty fed up, so we'll see.
Well, I think the problem with the government stepping in, which I am for, I agree with you
Hmm.
on most stuff. I would imagine, but um, I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's like a socialist or whatever," or like, because I mean, as you know, California. I don't know about where you live, but
Hmm.
in California, it's getting to the point where it's like hard to survive basically. And
Yeah.
I would say, just like you said, have the government. It's not really up to like the people can only do so much, So
Hmm.
have the government step in and I guess lower the rent or lower the housing prices or whatever. But a lot of people would say that's like socialism or whatever. So I mean, do you feel like that is kind of like the answer that we should be doing, or how do we make California more like easier, a more affordable place to live?
Yeah, I mean, if I mean socialism is what it could be, right? I mean, ultimately it kind of doesn't matter what it is. It just if whatever helps people live, I
Yeah,
think people gotta
call it
kind
what
of
you want.
yeah, call it what you want, but if you're able to live more affordably and you're able to get lower rent, lower grocery
Like
prices,
what's
like
wrong with
yeah,
that? I
sure,
don't get
man.
it. You know
Like
what I
go for
mean?
it. Call it what you want. And that
It's like,
is
do you really want these companies to have like full, or the landlords or whoever to have full control over like just making it so you just
right.
can't live?
That's how you'd flip it on people that have that is like, so are you like you're with the landlord saying that like it's harder for them to live because you're not paying more money than they can do if they get a job. Like a lot of these landlords, people forget, don't have real jobs. They just sit on the land that like their family had or whatever, and then they charge people to take whatever amount of apartment they have to give them, and then it's just like, are you the landlords are the victim of this? I don't know about that. And it's always funny to say like because there's always a disconnect on like what people connect with or what people think they are in the grand economic scheme of things. Like if you were to ask somebody, the average American, do you think you're going to be a billionaire? A lot of us will say yes. Like at one point in my life, like I'll probably have $1 million. Like I'd love to dream that that's true, or like or frame it this way. Do you think it's more likely you're going to be homeless or more likely you're going to be a millionaire? A lot of people don't think they're ever going to be homeless. A lot of people already have been homeless and they're one missed paycheck away from being homeless, right? It's so easy to become homeless in America. But a lot of people don't think about that because you're told the American dream, everything is possible. You can start a business. Once you graduate college, all that stuff is going to be easily attainable for you and you're on the path to becoming a millionaire. I think increasingly people don't believe that as much because we're on these tough economic times right now. But it's hard to get people to admit, like, yeah, I easily could become homeless. So once they start reckoning, like, or rather, since they haven't reckoned with that, a lot of this policy stances they'll take are like going to favor what they want to be, right? They want to favor what I could be in the future because like when I make it, I don't want to have to pay all those taxes. Or when I become owner of this multi-million-dollar complex, like I want to make as much money as I can. But in the meantime, you're renting, you're not making a lot of payments on your car, you're in a place where like the average American is so cash poor right now. They don't have savings and they're not thinking about that kind of stuff because the American way is to dream and to aspire and to wish for a better tomorrow. But that means that you're taking your eye off what you have right now and you're supporting a lot of stuff that like ultimately doesn't support you. And the corporations are laughing about it because they're like, we're getting these people. We're paying all these millions of dollars to buy these politicians who are going to support these policies that these people love supporting, even though it hurts them. And it's sad. It's really sad that that's a lot of the realities that a lot of people are in because they'll convince themselves, I don't want to support socialism. I don't want to be a communist. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it'd be good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. It doesn't really make sense to me. I've heard that mindset before, where it's like everybody thinks that they're one step away or whatever from becoming rich. It's like, well, if you actually look at who's a millionaire, it's like, what would you say to be a millionaire? You're probably maybe more than 1% of, I don't know, of the U.S.
Yeah.
Would you say
Most
it's about around
millionaires
1% if you're a millionaire?
Yeah, it's about probably 1% of people, and most millionaires, it's generational wealth, right? Like they didn't even do
Yeah,
anything to get their money.
yeah,
It's like they're the Waltons, like the Walmart family, and like their 12 kids are all multi-millionaires just for being born. And then homelessness is way higher than that. It's like
yeah.
close to 10% based on some counts, depending on where you live.
Like me personally, I feel like I have a pretty reasonable view, but it's like, yeah, I'm probably most likely not going to be. I mean, I guess I could get to the point where I'm a millionaire, but even more than that, I'm most likely not going to get to that point where I'm the rich guy or whatever. I'm
Hmm.
probably going to be, the other 99% or whatever.
Yeah.
So and it's like, even if I do eventually become that, then I guess maybe I can change then, but why would I want to change that? Why would I not want to change that now to benefit me? It doesn't make any sense. And a lot of
Yeah.
those people too are in like southern, kind of
Hmm.
like poor southern states. A lot of them are like Republicans, and it's like you look around and it's like, man, like everybody around you is living in these like small little junky homes and wherever,
Yeah.
Tennessee or wherever. Like this probably isn't going to work, unless somebody dies and gives you a bunch of money. This isn't going to turn around, or you have some.
Yeah. You literally hit the lottery or something.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about helping out the little guy,
Hmm.
and I've always been for that. So as soon as I found out that that's what the left is for, but then you have people, you have people who tell you, oh, that's just like bullshit or whatever. Like the left isn't really like Obama or Biden or whoever, Kamala isn't really trying to even help out the left. That's not their goal. They just say that they're going to do that, but really, like, you've probably heard that before. Where like
Hmm.
they're just really keeping black people and poor people and in poverty.
Yeah.
Well, then you're kind of like, well, I mean, and it sounds like a conspiracy theory, and it probably is, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, then you're like, well, I don't know what to do, but like, I'm still for the principles of trying to help people out. And I feel like we could. And then there's also the people who say, well, look at California and Gavin Newsom. And there's still so much homeless there. Why aren't they fixing
Yeah.
that problem? And it's true.
It is true. There just hasn't been a lot of progress in a lot of these issues from either party. So if one party is going to try and claim the mantle, say we're for the little guy, it's so easy to come back and say, well, what about all the problems? And they're right to point those out because they're not focused on those problems. I mean, Gavin Newsom's a prime example of like, if you look at his career and like how he's been raised and what he's focused on over the course of his career, it's not been focusing on the little guy. He's the prime example of a guy just chasing headlines and you don't know what he really believes. Like, he's really positioned himself very well as like a champion of the progressive left. He's from San Francisco. He very prominently like got gay marriage in San Francisco for like a day just to prove a point or something, right? And ultimately it didn't end up lasting, but like he's saying like I'm for you and I care about you.
That hasn't lasted. I thought it is legal in
Oh yeah,
California.
no. I'm saying like he in 2004, he
Oh,
was mayor of San
before.
Francisco and he did like he protested anti-gay laws in California. He's like, come to San Francisco, we'll get you married today, gay married. And then like it lasted for a day and then they got shut down because of course like they couldn't do that by themselves. But he's very well positioned as like I have always supported the most liberal causes and I am for you. But like you look at his background and he is part of like a multimillionaire family, silver spoon in his mouth kind of guy, and he's always done what is most popular in wherever he lives. And that's good, right? Because you want people to believe what their voters are telling them is true. But as soon as the wind changes, he'll change his mind too. The same guy who got all this gay marriage stuff in San Francisco way before anybody else was on it. Also, now that he's running for president and has a different audience than the most liberal part of America in San Francisco, is getting on podcasts and saying trans athletes shouldn't be able to participate in high school sports, which is just, you know, whether you believe that or not, that's not what you would think a guy who did that would believe. He's, chasing the headlines and doing whatever he can. He's anti-Trump now because it's incredibly unpopular to support Trump, and he's a Democrat, of course. And so he's going to be I'm going to show that I hate Trump more than anybody. Meanwhile, California has all these other problems that he's not focused on, like homelessness and the fires and, rent going up. And it'd be great if he focused more on that, but that's not as popular to talk about right now. So he's not doing any progress on that kind of stuff. It's again back to like these culture war things that really don't matter because that's what people love talking about right now.
Well, I think that maybe yeah, I mean, I kind of view him the same way you do, probably. I don't really know enough about the whole thing. But
Mhm.
in terms of the culture war thing, I kind of get the vibe by what he's doing, what you just said he's doing now, that like he sees that this is what's going on the right. So he's trying to play the game on the left, I guess. And it's
Yes,
like,
yes, he is.
maybe that's like, I don't really, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a good idea to like play into that whole game, but maybe he feels like you kind of have to. It's like, the
I think he
problem is I
does.
don't even know if, and maybe you do have to, but I don't know if he hasn't, I don't really know, but like, does he even have enough like support to do that? Because it's like, does the rest of the left want. It almost seems like the rest of the left. I don't really know. Once again, but
Hmm.
a lot of them just seem defeated. Like I don't really know. It just seems
Yeah.
after the Kamala loss, it's just, and it's like, in a way, I kind of, and I don't know. I think that everybody was kind of fighting in 2016 when Trump won, and
Hmm.
then Biden won 2020, so that was great. And then here we are again, and it's kind of like, I mean, I hate to say you just throw your hands up and say, well, what are we going to do? But I almost, I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe like I don't. That's the thing is, I don't know. Like I was just saying, like
Yeah.
maybe what he is doing is good, but maybe like not fighting is good too.
It's hard. Yeah.
I personally think that. So for one, I was going to ask you if you think he'll run for president and if that's a good idea. But I personally think, like, I don't know very much about politics, but like just reading the room and seeing the situation, they obviously have their Trump, who is their just king or whatever. I don't really know. Like you said, maybe the less people are kind of liking Trump now after all the Epstein stuff and
Yeah.
everything else.
Didn't
But
help.
I think that we should have done for 2020, and this isn't like no slam to or sorry 2024. I'm like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
lost in my years. No slam towards Kamala, but I think that we should have and we should, and maybe this could be Gavin Newsom. The problem with Gavin or Newsom, the problem with Gavin Newsom is that I think like I just heard Sam Harris say the majority of the rest of the country doesn't like Gavin. Everybody else thinks California is like a failed state,
Yeah.
but he is the type of guy that I'm kind of talking about, where I think that we need to get somebody in there who's like some sort of alpha male kind of, and I'm not for the whole alpha male thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like get somebody like The Rock or something, or like or George Clooney, or I
Hmm.
don't think George Clooney or Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt would do it, but somebody like that who will go in there and be like, you know what, Trump, like you're fucking, you're full of shit, and like
Yeah.
basically put this 80-year-old to fucking rest. You know what I mean? Like just, I mean,
Yeah.
would you agree with that? Like, why don't we put somebody like that who's just maybe like some sort of fucking liberal, like Marine type guy in
Yeah.
there who just fucks shit up and say and play, like I said, plays their game the
Yeah.
way that they're playing it. Which do you think that's? And I know that I think the liberal mentality is more like, no, we're gonna like play
Yeah.
it
When
safe
they go
or
low, we go high. Yeah.
exactly. So do you think that, let's just say George Clooney or somebody like that, The Rock or whatever, if they put somebody in like that, do you think that that would just because they have kind of like similar to Trump, where Trump was kind of almost like a celebrity or whatever, put some
Yeah.
sort of celebrity who just everybody loves in there, and like I feel like he would probably win. It doesn't even really matter about politics anymore, almost, right? I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think I'm kind of off?
No, I think that that's where a lot of people are at. There's a lot wrapped up in there. I think to briefly wrap up the Newsom stuff, I think
Yeah,
you're right. A lot of people view California as a failed state, and they view Gavin Newsom as like too left to win America.
and I
And
don't, I don't. Sorry to cut you off. I don't think it necessarily is a failed state, but yeah,
no, I don't think it is either. But that's what
yeah,
people perceive it is because
yeah.
there's a lot of real problems in California that haven't been fixed. And instead, you're doing a lot of this other stuff instead, right? Um, Newsom, I agree. I don't think he's probably going to be president. I don't think he's got enough popularity nationwide. And really, frankly, in California, I think a lot of people right now are in the spot of, especially Democrats, like just do something. We are feeling horrible after 2024. It felt like Kamala wasn't listening to us. It felt like Biden wasn't listening to us. They were lying to us about what happened with Biden and how out of it he was. And we just need somebody who's going to be real and somebody who's going to listen to us and take this right to Trump's face. And Gavin Newsom is reading the room because he's an expert at that and saying, all right, I'm going to do that. But you're right that he's got a lot of other baggage that goes along with that. And it's almost better to say, like, remove politics from it. Somebody just needs to stand up and do something that I know is going to listen to us and represent themselves the best way that they can. And that's where we get a lot of these celebrity candidates. I deal like the most popular candidate in for like 10 years running among the average Democratic voter was like Oprah, right? Because Oprah had a talk show and she was very popular and she was a black woman and she checked a lot of boxes for people. And people are like, yeah, let's make Oprah president. She's never shown any interest in that. But what made Oprah popular is that you felt like she was having conversations that matter and she's going to say things that are like people aren't bringing up. And then it became The Rock, and The Rock is a very charismatic guy and he's leaned into it. And like he's a great macho man and like all that stuff. Like, that gets to the heart of like what people want in their politics right now because they don't want to get bogged down in like the issues. They don't want to get bogged down in like the tax code and all that stuff. They care about that, but their number one issue is just like who's looking out for me and who's not going to be bought out by these corporate whatevers and is going to keep it real with me. Somebody who's independently wealthy and has a career outside of politics checks both of those boxes. And that's why Trump is as popular as he is, right? Because people are like, he's not going to be beholden to anybody else. He's just going to do what he wants. He's going to say what he wants. And he's going to stick it to the man, right? The Rock and Oprah and all those other people check a lot of the same boxes for liberal people, and there's a real appeal there. They're never going to do it because I think, especially on the Democratic side, Democrats are the party of like, we're going to be more cautious. We're not going to throw away all of the norms and policies that have served us well over the last couple of years. Until suddenly we do, because now Joe Biden is too old and the party is not going to hold a primary. We're going to put in Kamala Harris instead. So it's like, how well has that served the party? Not very well. Are they going to change? No, probably not. And it's just going to depress everybody because things aren't going to change. So that's why we have anybody doing something big right now is going to be incredibly popular. And I don't know what that is going to do long term to our politics. I think we've kind of seen a little degradation of our norms and values over the last couple of years. You can say how much that's helped or hurt the country, but I don't think we've seen the end of it. I think it's going to keep going down that road because people hate a lot of the like fussy stuff about politics and the bureaucracy of it. And Trump has made it okay to make a lot of that stuff go away. And now I think the average voter doesn't want that returned in any way.
Yeah. I mean, am I missing something about like The Rock? Or is The Rock even? I don't even really necessarily know if I would assume that he would be liberal if he
Yeah, he
ran,
doesn't
right?
say. He hasn't said what party he is. I think he's like I think maybe something was leaked a while ago that like he's registered as a Democrat, but like who knows at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you would kind of assume that he would be just because he's in Hollywood and supposedly everybody,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
almost have to be supposedly in Hollywood. But
Although wrestlers, I mean, that's certainly I think are probably more conservative than the average athletes in general, I think are more conservative than the average celebrity. But
but I mean, even if they're not, I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of feel like maybe I'm missing something because it almost seems like as of this point, the left, like I said, they've kind of just. I mean, I think they put it. I don't know the whole thing, how they handle everything with Biden, and then with putting Kamala in kind of last minute without asking people. And it's like, don't get me wrong, Kamala's fine, but it's
yeah.
like, I mean, the problem that I have is like I have no problem with a black woman as president. I don't, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of the country does, I
Hmm.
guess, and I
They
think we
do, yeah.
saw that. So it's kind of like, okay, well, it would be nice, like if it was a perfect society, if she ran one, but I don't necessarily think she was the best choice. I don't even think Biden was the best choice at the time, even before he supposedly started getting dementia, which is like maybe not
Yeah,
even true. Like some
right.
people are saying, some people still defend him. They're like, oh no, he was fine, or he was just as bad as Trump was. I personally think he was pretty bad, but it just seems like the way I'm like maybe I'm missing something here, but the way that they're going seems like a very defeatist kind of
Yeah.
approach to it, like almost like they're just like giving up. And at least with Gavin Newsom, even though I think that he is that unlikable guy that you said,
Hmm.
at least he's like kind of seems like he's probably willing to play that game with Trump or whoever's
Yeah.
next. Like, do you think he will run? Do you think that's
Yeah, he's definitely going to run. I mean, he's term limited right now, so he's not going to be governor by the end of 2026, regardless of what happens, just because his term is going to end and he's not going to be able to run again. And he is not going to be able to stay out of the spotlight. The fact that it's an open primary for the Democrats in 2028 and Gavin Newsom is basically the polling leader right now, he'd be stupid not to run. And he's been planning his entire political career to get to the point where he is the best anti-Trump or the best positioned to be the next president because he's the one doing something. Like he's always out there in front of a camera doing something. Um, but you're right, the rest of the party is very defeatist right now. I was at a town hall for my local congressperson earlier that last week, and the main question, once he opened it up for questions that he got from people, is people saying, I was a Democrat. And now, after the way that the 2024 election was handled, I'm not a Democrat anymore. And I live in a conservative area, a rural part of the state, so it's not a super liberal place. But the guy that is my congressperson represents a large geographic district that is mostly Democratic, but my town in particular is more conservative. So take all this with a grain of salt. But they're saying, I'm not a Democrat anymore because of the way the party handled this. And I want somebody to do something and stand up to Trump. And you as our congressperson, what are you personally doing to stand up to Trump? Right. And then he gave like some waffly answer where he didn't really say, he's like, oh, there's a time and place. And the crowd just went like, they started losing all their faith in him because it's just like, say what you believe. You're obviously against Trump. That's, you're a Democrat in Congress and you voted to impeach him last time. I assume your opinion hasn't changed in the last 4 years since he has been out of office. You still don't like him. So what are you doing? And then he's just like, this or that. And it's just,
Or they haven't even thought about it or something. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it's like, how'd you not know people were going to ask about that? Because have you seen the news? Like all this stuff, again, like all this Epstein stuff just happened. Like people don't like Trump right now, and you're talking to voters who probably don't like Trump either. And then two, it's like, are you actually not doing anything? Or is like, are you just concerned how people are going to take it, that you aren't saying what you're actually doing? A lot of the party is in that space of like, they believe that they will outlast Trump because this is his last term. He's not going to be able to run for office again. There's the whole thing about whether he's going to be able to circumvent that and run for a third term. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But
That's a
ass
good sign,
yeah,
right?
assuming he is going to follow the rule of law, which, who knows? And he's not going to run for another term.
That would be so
That would
nuts.
be, yeah. He's, you will
And he'd
technically.
be like in his 82 or whatever when he
Yeah,
did
that's
it.
the other thing. These guys are so old that like the future of the Democratic Party is bleak. And like who's our next guy? I mean, it is Newsom right now because he's in the lead and he's doing all those other things. But like to
Is
wrap
there
up my
anybody behind Newsom real quick? Sorry.
no, not really. I mean, in the polling right now, it's like
Kamala wants to run again, right?
she does, yeah, which is why she didn't run for governor. There was a big speculation. It's like, oh, is she gonna run for Gavin Newsom's job? But she said she's not going to. Right now in the polling, it's like Newsom won, and then it's AOC, and then I think it's Kamala just on like name recognition. And AOC, who knows what she's gonna do? She's got her own politics to worry about in terms of being too far left and being a woman of color and all of that stuff. I think makes it unlikely that she would run and probably unlikely she would win. But she also falls in the same camp of like, well, she's doing something. She's, at least a lot among a lot of corners of the internet, a lot of people really like her because she is also very honest with people. She does like Instagram lives and, she does like her morning routines and she was a bartender, right? Like a lot of people really like how authentic she is and she was not concerned about where the party was. She was gonna do a lot of her own and follow her hearts. And people like that sort of stuff. But the other thing to remember in presidential politics, if you're in the lead right now, you almost never actually win. So who knows by the time the election runs around if there's going to be somebody more likely than AOC or Gavin Newsom. But people are looking for change. They want younger people. I think they're more willing to consider that for one, which is exciting for a number of reasons. And they want they don't want Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton anymore of people who are a lot more cautious and a lot more just rely on my experience, rely on what I've done in the past. It's like, well, what are you doing right now? What are you doing to stand up against the active threat that we see before us?
Yeah, well, like Joe Biden, like I said, I don't like it's. I'm pretty sure at the beginning of his, and I voted for him, and like I was gonna vote. I honestly was gonna vote for Kamala, but I live in
Mhm.
California. We got there, the line was long, so we didn't even vote. But I voted for Biden. And he seemed fine in the beginning, but I think that it seems like they probably could have done more on will he be fine in the next four
Yeah.
years. And then yeah, but so I think that he was fine in the beginning, but
Yeah.
even he just didn't seem really fully prepared. Maybe I'm thinking of him towards the end where it just seemed like he was kind of out of it, spacey.
Yeah.
And but I mean, what do you think about um somebody like AOC? I mean, like would you say that she is like a communist? like that Zeron or socialist or whatever that
Yeah, I mean,
Zeron.
she says she's a socialist, so I mean, I think it's fair to say she is. And I like AOC. I
Well,
think, she's done a lot of really cool stuff for making politics more accessible to people and representing her district well. And, by and large, I think she's in a better place than a lot of politicians when it comes to like not taking corporate money and doing all that stuff. But the other thing is she hasn't gotten a lot of laws passed. I think that's something that a lot of liberals don't like talking about her and Bernie, is that as great as they are as people, we may think, I don't know, none of us really know any of these people. It seems like they're good people. They just don't get a lot passed. They don't do like their actual job as effectively as I think we would like a congressperson or a senator to be. Um, but overall, I think there's a lot worse politicians than AOC, and if she wants to run for president, she'd have a good head start, because there is a lot of the inherent stuff that makes her popular and got her elected in the first place, as young as she was, as underfunded as she was. But I think there's just probably a lot of hurdles in her way that make it unlikely she would really win. But I guess we've been wrong before.
And then on the other side, who do you think will run after Trump? Hopefully, if Trump doesn't win again, do you
Yeah,
think that
right.
it'll be it's probably gonna either be JD Vance or his son, um, which is
Those,
Trump,
yeah.
Donald Trump Jr., right? Or
Those are the most likely ones right now. I mean, it was funny in 2024 when people thought Trump was beatable and they got this large Republican field of like, it's Ron DeSantis and they had
that
Mike
dude just seems
Pence.
like so.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis seems like he like likes torturing people or something, right? With his like alligator Alcatraz and like sending people to.
Yeah.
He just seems like
He,
an evil guy. But I mean,
he, he
he got toasted. I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised that somebody like I don't know. It just seems weird to me with the Trump thing. It's like he kind of I don't know. Like a lot of these people seem more likable almost than Trump to me. But then no, Trump wins. But anyways, sorry, I cut
no,
you off
you're,
when I just heard his name, Ron DeSantis.
No, you're right. He's a weird guy. I think I mean, remember there was that story that came out, or I don't know if you heard this. He had like lifts or he would wear heels too because he was like self-conscious
Oh
about his height.
yeah,
He was wearing the cowboy boots with heels,
yeah.
which is fine. Like, do whatever you're gonna do, but like, just a strange guy. Um, he was an interesting test case of like, can anybody beat Trump in the Trump era? Because for a little while there, DeSantis is actually more popular than Trump among Republican voters because Trump was going through all those criminal trials. He had just been found guilty of sexual assault against somebody. And it's like, if there's a moment to ditch Trump, now is the time, was the theory. And then they met Ron DeSantis. And they're like, oh, never mind.
This guy's like even worse. And it's like I was gonna kind of say he kind of came off more charming, but then I've heard a lot of people say he's not charming at all. Like
No.
yeah, not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily. I didn't really necessarily mean charming, but more at least younger and kind of like he seemed like he was willing to take a stance on. Like I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
he's willing to. He wants to deport people or put them in fucking prisons or whatever. And like
Yeah.
I think a lot of his side, I kind of thought would like him more, but they didn't end up. And then whatever happened to whatever happened to the like the Indian guy
Oh, Ramaswamy,
yeah, like he
Vivek,
just seemed to
yeah.
have disappeared, right? Like, did he just get like cut off from?
He ran for governor in Ohio this year, and then he got beat badly because he's from Ohio, but he hadn't spent any time there. So people are just like, "What are you doing here? Like, you don't really care about us. This is just like another, who knows, publicity stunt, basically." So he lost that, and then it's just like, yeah, he's just kind of embarrassed himself. I think he was doing Doge for a little bit too with Elon. I think they had him doing that at the start of the year, and I mean, that whole disaster really crashed and burned.
At one point, didn't I kind of feel like at one point Trump kind of cut him off, right? Was that the case? Or,
Yeah, which he does with everybody, right? He brings them into the fold, and then like they're friends for a couple of months, and then they're kicked out of there.
yeah, but sorry, I cut you off. You were saying Ron DeSantis, and then
Well, I was just talking, yeah, like 2024, like all these establishment figures ran, and like the establishment of the Republican Party is like the MAGA base of Ron DeSantis and people in his cabinet. They had what was her name? The Secretary of State. Uh,
Vicky
yeah,
Noem
Nikki
or whatever,
Haley. Yeah,
or
Nikki
Nikki Haley.
Haley.
But there's also isn't it Vicky? Is it Vicky Noem
Oh,
or
Kristi Noem. Yeah,
Christine
yeah.
Noem? She seems kind of like pretty gnarly too, right? She like
Yeah,
shot
South
her
Park really
daughter.
got her. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all those people are, I mean, they're not going to be able to run again in 2028. So it just leaves you with like, yeah, Trump's kid, Trump Jr., and then his current VP, Vance, who I don't think people really like Vance. I think there's the meme about him with the big fat face, all that stuff,
Yeah.
and the couch thing, and it's just like I can't see him actually getting the party nomination. There's a lot of unlikable people that have gotten the party nomination just because the they're the last one that people are remembering and they got the name recognition, but I don't know. He's kind of a dork. Going from Trump to him, I think would be, I think, too far of a swing for a lot of the MAGA people. I don't know who they're looking at right now. I think they're probably looking to the celebrity route too. They don't have
Really?
as big name celebrities as we do, so it's always kind of bottom of the barrel. Like, I
Like
mean, even
James Woods or something, or like one of
yeah,
those types
yeah.
of Chris Pratt, or like,
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, that's where Trump was too before he ran for president. Like, as popular as the show was, nobody was thinking Trump was like an A-lister kind of guy. Like, those are, that's the pool you're playing in on the Republican side, there's celebrities. But I genuinely can't imagine what the party is going to be once Trump officially leaves and or dies or whatever. And it's like you can't vote for Trump anymore because the party is just Trump, Trump, Trump. Like, it's his thing completely now. What are they going to do? I genuinely don't know.
that's why you almost think his son,
Yeah.
just because he's, he's got his genes or whatever, he's
Yeah.
his son. And then there's JD Vance, who, what's funny, I don't really know a whole ton about all this stuff, but it's like with JD Vance, it's like what's funny is most of the guys, just based off of vibe or whatever, like that are
Hmm.
around Trump and Trump himself, I don't really like they come off as kind of like honestly like sleazy like car salesman type people to me.
Yeah.
Um, but with JD Vance, it's like just looking at him and stuff, like not necessarily even what he says, but just like the bar test thing, where like, or a beer test, where like, would you have a beer? I don't even know if I would have a beer with him, but it's like
No.
he kind of seems to be the most normal, I guess I would say. Like I could
It-
see him being just like working like a normal job, and it's like, yeah, we definitely don't agree on stuff, but like
yeah.
he seems to be kind of, but like I know, like you said, like a lot of people don't necessarily like him for whatever reason, and
Hmm.
I'm probably totally off about judging his character, but like he kind of seems a little, I don't know. Yeah, he just seems a little bit normal to me. Donald Trump Jr. seems kind of like the type of guy who like cheats on his wife or whatever, just kind of like a slimy guy, you know.
Yeah.
And he supposedly is with Gavin Newsom, or he is with Gavin Newsom's
That's
ex-wife,
right. That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So was
It's-
that like a little bit of like a sting to Gavin, you
I
think?
assume, yeah. He's got a pretty weird history. Where like when they were married, she wasn't really political at all. And then she divorced him before he was like a big politician. I think it was like while he was still in San Francisco. And then she became a Fox News personality and then, rose through the ranks. And then people found out it's like, oh, she's connected to Newsom. I think it was. I mean, who knows? Maybe they have a beautiful, loving relationship that's built on, mutual shared interests and all that stuff. Who's to say? It probably didn't hurt that he would have gotten one over in his mind on Newsom that he got to marry his ex-wife. Um,
So people didn't
but
even like really fully put it together that it was his ex-wife.
no, because she didn't keep the name, right? I mean,
Oh,
so and she wasn't with him when he was super popular. So it kind of just came out later, like when Newsom became more popular, and then she married the Trump guy. That like it was. I'm sure people in the industry knew, but like the average person, I mean, for a while, the average person didn't care about Newsom, and the average person doesn't know all the Fox News people. But like once politics became the culture, then it became like, oh, wait a minute, there's something there.
yeah. There's something about like these. I mean, there's obviously bad things about liberal women too, but there's something about these like Republican women that just comes off and as totally kind of bullshit to me. Like where they just it just I don't know, like the type of women who are, and then like to go even further, like it's kind of mean to say, but like somebody like Candace Owens or something, like a black woman who turned to become a Republican, and like there's just something about it that just seems like why would you want to be a woman? Like it almost seems like they're just like Candace Owens is doing it just to like make money. Probably,
Yeah,
I don't really know for sure, but then the wives of the Republicans are like just there because their husband's, a Republican. Like they just seem like they like you can't really be behind this shit, can you? Like it's like because it's like it seems like most of their what they believe in and their policies just almost seem like anti-women, anti same thing with the
yeah.
gay people who are Republican. It's like how could you want to support like Republicans when like they don't even support you like getting married and stuff? You know what I mean?
It's a very interesting question to think about. I know it was like really brought to the forefront when Trump did the Access Hollywood tape came out. It's like they grab him by the pussy stuff. And it's like, how
Yeah,
are all these women
exactly.
supporting Trump right now? And I think there was a real reckoning that ultimately ended up not going anywhere because he won. That could have been a moment of just like, this is actually the anti-woman party. Look at who they're propping up, and they don't elect women really ever. Sometimes they do, but like more often than not, Republican Party is dominated by men, and the Democratic Party is too, to be fair, but even more so on the Republican side. I think there's when you get to again that moment of like what you are versus like what you're aspiring to be, once you reach a certain level of comfort politically or financially or whatever, you stop identifying as like a member of what you are. It's like you stop seeing it. Again, I don't know what's going on in these people's mind. I am a man. I have not been in anywhere close to this position. But what I would guess is it's like you stop identifying as like woman first and you start identifying as something else first. So you aren't thinking about this hurting my interest as a woman. You think this is helping my interest as a Republican or interest as a wife of a senator. And then not thinking about like if I were in a different position, like if I weren't married to this guy, or if I were living on my own somewhere and had to raise my kids, or was pregnant and didn't want to be, how would these policies actually affect me? Because once you reach a certain level, policies just don't affect you, right? We even see that like the immigration stuff. Trump is as anti-immigrant as it gets, but he married an immigrant, Melania, right? And like you look at her family, her parents and her were born in another country and immigrated over here. And a lot of the stuff that Trump has put in place would made that family history impossible, even though, they say they did all these things the right way or whatever. Stuff has come out that's like there was like some lapsed visas here or there that if you're being really strict about this stuff, they never would have had the life that they now have in America. But it's easy to forget about stuff once you've made it. And I think a lot of Republican women are in that same mindset of like, it's not about me being a woman. And that even is encouraged by the voters because they don't want to think of these people as women. They don't want to think of them as, a representation of what their policies may affect. They think of them as like, who is saying what I want to hear? And it doesn't really matter who's saying it once you reach a certain level. And these women, once they reach that level, it's like, I can't go back. I can't go back to where I'm judged as being a woman. I have to be judged as all these other things first. And then once you push all that down, it's like, yeah, you're gonna prioritize some stuff you probably wouldn't have if you were thinking a little differently.
Yeah. And it kind of makes sense. Like if you happen to be, it's kind of like a victim of circumstance. If you happen to be in a situation where your husband is some rich dude and he's a
Yeah,
Republican, and you almost kind of have to be like, you have to like toe the line or whatever. And because like you're going out to hang out with all these other Republicans, you kind of have to like just go along with it.
yeah,
And but it seems almost like you would almost the mindset would be you would almost have to like want to live like you're still in like the 50s or whatever. That seems like the whole kind of mindset, right? Which is like make America
yeah.
great again. And it's like, well, when
Mhm.
was it better than it is right now? I mean, honestly, I don't really think it probably was ever better than it is right now.
I agree.
But I would imagine that like my sister, who's a Republican, said like she answered me by saying, "Oh, the 50s," and it's like, but you really want to go back and live in the 50s, like when most women like weren't working, she works, and it's like, but maybe they do. Maybe that's it's a comfortable position to be in. Like maybe they want to not be working and just kind of like fully relying on their abusive husband who, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, it goes back to the same thing of like if you're imagining an alternate reality for yourself, you're gonna imagine the best possible one because the grass is always greener, right? You're not gonna think about it's like, am I gonna be trapped in an abusive relationship? Am I gonna be left without money because I can't open a credit card account by myself? You're gonna think like in the best possible circumstance, yeah, I'll be a stay-at-home mom. I'll have great kids. My husband will have a great job. Everyone will be happy. We'll have two and a half kids, a white picket fence, and all that stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe that could happen. But also, if anything goes wrong and you're in that situation, you aren't getting out or you're not getting out safely. But people don't, people love the escapism of trying to imagine these alternate realities of like what things had been or what things could be. And no one wants to think about the sad stuff. So you get this interesting separation of like, what are we actually talking about?
Yeah, well, like when my sister said that, I kind of brought up like, well, yeah, we had no cell phones back then, no computers, no
Yeah.
AC. Like you wouldn't be working. But and my fiance was like, oh, well, like that's um we're not talking about that. Like we're talking about politics. But it's like you kind of have to it's all I don't know. I guess if it is, I don't even know if like who was even president in the 50s, but like
Hmm.
my mindset is no way in hell I want to go back before I mean, honestly, like pretty much right now. I mean, in my opinion, right now it's just fucking
Yeah.
and it's I guess it is mainly technology and not I don't know.
I mean,
The politics weren't great 100 years ago either. So you know what I mean. So it's
no.
like
But yeah, even the little things of like I mean, I do this and you probably do too. When's the last meal you ate that you weren't watching TV or YouTube or something with it, right? Like like that sort of stuff is like so ingrained in people's mind that it's like, oh yeah, I can't even do stuff like that if I go back then.
I don't know. That's the whole thing. Is in a way they can say, oh well, that is, and some people will make the case that we are worse off with
Yeah. Oh, sure.
technology. That's like a whole nother thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to
And
get into some stuff real quick.
for sure.
So for I don't know how long you have in total, but
I could keep talking. I'm good.
okay, cool. So I guess first of all, start off with like we when we were earlier talking about like the racism. Well, I don't even really necessarily want to include like only racist, but like
Hmm.
any of the almost I want to say extreme right, but maybe they're not the extreme right kind of
Hmm.
um YouTubers or whatever you'd call them now, you know, like the well like Nick Fuentes. I don't know if you know Nick
Yeah, yeah.
Fuentes or yeah, or like do you know Sam Hyde?
No, I mean I've heard the name, but I don't really know like what they do or what he does.
He's more of like a comedian, but supposedly he's racist or Nick Fuentes is obviously racist. But then you got Candace Owens, Tucker
Yes.
Carlson, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned like the making fun of JD Vance. I've also seen a lot of what's the dude's name? He kind of has a funny kind of a funny face, but he's like kind of like a good looking guy, but not good looking, but has a normal face, but like a funny looking face at the same time. He like goes to colleges and debates people, not Ben Shapiro, but
And is that not Crowder?
well, that is Crowder, but there's one other guy that I'm freaking. It doesn't even really matter, but I've seen.
Oh, the guy at South Park, right? With they made his face like what was his name? Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it should be somebody that I should know. It's gonna bother me, but he's like really like strong Christian.
Yeah.
He was on Bill Maher like a month or two ago. Anyways, I've seen his like meme of like his face looking. Maybe it was
Yeah,
from
yeah.
South Park. I don't know. But anyways, all these types of people: Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson. What do you think of? I guess I mean, just to ask you the question, what do you think of them? But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think of them? Do you think that most of them are? Oh yeah, Patrick Bet David's like another good one. That guy is just in another like universe. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
do you think that most of them, to me, kind of come across like grifters? Tim
Yeah.
Pool. Um,
I think they do. Yeah.
do you
And
think they're
it's
fully grifting, or do you think that at this point, or do you think they just believe really what they're saying? Like, do you think they're being paid off? Like, supposedly Tim Pool was.
yeah, it's hard to say. I think there's a level of genuine belief in there. At least probably at the start. Who knows why people do what they do? Money is probably the safe answer, but sure, benefit of the doubt, maybe these people believe what they're saying. Um, it's interesting how a lot of these people do get famous. I think it speaks to the moment of a lot of people are suffering right now. A lot of people are not in a good spot, and they are thinking of like, what is something that could bring me joy? And uh, a lot of these people, like particularly like Jordan Peterson, get their start. It's like with actual good advice, like let's help you get your life in order. Like here's some things you can do like mentally or clean up your space or do all these things that like can get you on the right track, get you feeling better mentally, right? And then like you're watching them for that sort of stuff, and they're also talking about all these other things of like the world is unbalanced, and here's some things that you can do to like here's to help balance the world or make sure that like the way that you're acting or the people you interact with doesn't mess with your mental state or the reason that these things are happening to you is because of XYZ and like ultimately that's I think where people start getting down a harmful path but like the basic values of what they're talking about. It's like talk more with other people, have an open mind, like go onto these other places and be willing to speak about what you care about and have a routine and all that stuff and uh, protect family values. All that stuff's good, right? Like a lot of the stuff that they say is not inherently harmful. It's when they start talking about like more explicitly political stuff that I think it is like once people are already there, then they hook them on the other stuff too. And it's very hard, I think, for a lot of people to lead with politics and become super big and super popular. That doesn't happen with a lot of people. It can. I think sometimes that happens. But by and large, again, going back to our earlier conversation, people want to not be political if they can avoid it. People want to just kind of engage with stuff and not have to think about that. And that's how they get hooked on a lot of these people because they're just trying to be they're presenting themselves as like, I am looking out for you. It's a lonely world. Here's a way to connect with people. And there's some stuff there that's interesting, I guess. And whether they're grifting or not, some of that stuff is tale as old as time. These are the people that become successful because they connect with people. The grift probably comes a little later.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I had a guy on who I pretty much agreed with, I think, in terms of all these people and kind of like looking at most of them as YouTube grifters. And I mean, part of it is kind of like, don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody's trying to make money.
Hmm.
And if you can go on YouTube and make money by grifting, then so be it. I mean, if I can make money by going on YouTube for an hour or two a week and make a ton of money and it's easy, then okay, like that sounds great. But
Yeah.
I do have a problem with people who are grifting, like and intentionally grifting and like lying to people. And when
Yes.
I was talking to this guy, he kind of seemed to see it's not really so much about their intent, it's about what they're saying. And I think that his overall point may have been more of like they're saying bad things. But my thing is just kind of like if they're saying bad things but they believe them,
Yeah.
then you can't really hate on that. It's like they're just it's free speech and they're saying what they believe. They might be wrong,
Sure.
but so in my opinion, it's all kind of intent and it's all kind of like, do you really like Alex Jones would be like a perfect example for this? Like, do
Oh
you really
yeah.
believe what you're saying, or are you just basically like mind fucking like a lot of people? And that's like real
Yeah, and
fucked up if you are. Yeah.
yeah, I was almost gonna mention him too as like the example of because he's been proven like in court, like no, he was like it's all a character to him. He doesn't truly believe Sandy Hook was a false flag and all that stuff. He's just saying stuff.
That
Like,
even seems weird to
mhm.
me that it was proven. This I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of actually do believe him. I believe that he believes what he's saying. But
But no, yeah, he came out like when he was in his divorce proceedings or something because they were trying to say like how they were trying to find out how much money he actually had because he was saying he was completely bankrupt because putting it all in his business and they're like, oh, okay, let's take a look at your business and like some stuff came out or like internal documents and they're like, are you Alex Jones, the person like believing all of the stuff that you're saying? And like he in court is basically like, no, there's a character Alex Jones and then there's me. I am not
well,
preaching all this stuff. Yeah.
do you think there's that's where it gets kind of weird? Like, do you think there's um well, for one, do you think he was just saying that for like legal purposes to be like, no, I don't actually believe that. It's just me basically being
Could
funny to get out of it.
It could be, he definitely was trying to get out of paying a lot of money to his wife, and I think he was also being sued by the Sandy Hook parents too. So like, yeah, it probably was a convenient thing to say in court too, but like, I think he also probably isn't that unhinged in real life. I don't. I'd like to believe that a guy who is that unhinged wouldn't be able to run the media corporation that he was able to build, but I guess you never know.
I mean, if you think about that though, that is crazy that I mean, that's almost like it's the Andy Kaufman
Yeah.
level, like comedy or whatever he's doing, like where he's just playing this character. And what's crazy is like I hate to bring up my family, but my
Mhm.
dad listens to him and watches him, and he believes them. And my dad's a smart guy, so it's like obviously he's fooling a lot of
Yes.
intelligent people. But you think meanwhile he knows that he's like fooling these people. He's not ever coming off and saying, "Hey, like this is a joke. Like, don't do anything crazy based off this information, you know?
Well, like, because as soon as he would say that, then you lose all authenticity, right? And that's what his entire brand is based off of. That's what people, are there for, and why they believe him when he's saying like, "We're losing all the money in this company. Like, we need you to buy branded InfoWars stuff." And like this authenticity that I have built up is what is allowing you to believe I am telling you the truth, that I need your money. Like he can't say at any point this is all a bit or this is all a joke, because as soon as he loses that, then it's like, well, are you ever telling the truth?
Well, see that so that there would be my problem is that he's just I mean he's basically a snake oil salesman, and not
Yeah.
only is he that, but it's apparently came out that he is that. I mean that in my opinion, that's intent matters, but the problem with intent is like you can't really like prove intent. So like you
Yeah.
said earlier, like we don't really know with these people if they're playing a character or not, and a lot of people go on YouTube and TV shows or whatever and play characters. So like
hmm
same thing with Jordan Peterson. Like I pretty much 100% believe Jordan Peterson, and
I believe he's genuine too. Yeah.
yeah, I believe he's genuine. But there's some stuff that he does that's just so like outlandish and funny and weird that you're like, could he possibly be playing this crazy character? But I
Yeah,
don't
but
think he is. Yeah,
he's kind of just a broken mentally guy. He's gone through a lot of
yeah,
stuff that it's like I believe he does believe what he's saying. He's a professor and all that stuff. He's got his credentials behind him. He probably wouldn't throw all that away if he didn't actually believe in the stuff that he's saying. But he's also had like a real drug problem in the past, and he's gone through a lot of personal issues that it's like I think he's gonna come out of that a pretty weird guy, and he's gonna believe a lot of weird things. But he probably does actually believe that stuff, so. Again, it's like it's an interesting place where it's like you could still disagree with these guys, and you should, if you disagree with them, of course, follow your beliefs, but you can't like say they shouldn't be able to do what they're doing if they actually believe it, right? That's where you start running into like free speech problems, where it's like you can think, yeah, he probably shouldn't be as popular as he is. I'm not personally going to support him, and if my friends are listening to him, I'm going to say, hey, that guy believes XYZ, but like you got to let him do it ultimately. Like you can't stop that sort of stuff. And if people fall for it, or if people like, even if it's genuine, not even fall for it, if people believe the same stuff too, then sure, like they're gonna believe that stuff anyway, I guess.
yeah. Well, I think it's like I listen to comedy. I don't know if you like have heard like Tim Heidecker, his like Office Hours podcast.
No.
He's mostly comedy, but he does do some politics stuff, and he'll do bits and stuff like that where it's like he's getting into a character, but like you kind of know it's a bit. It's not like he's like just totally fooling you. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. That's like a big problem that I have with a lot of these people. And but that's the whole thing is we'll never know. Like I mean, I to be honest with you, I tend to believe. I tend to I don't know. I tend to believe them what that they believe what they're saying, but
Mm.
um and then there's yeah, like Candace Owens or something. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's probably really nothing to say, but it's like we'll never
We'll
know.
never
Like,
know.
we'll
Yeah.
never know. So, what about like Tucker Carlson? Like, what do you? I mean, I don't even really know what to say about these people, because like to me they're all just kind of like jokes. But I mean, what do you think about Tucker Carlson? Like,
He's another guy that's I think been proven that it's all fake, because his
really?
shtick early on, like he was a completely different guy,
It's
and
not
he
even like
was
comedy. Like, it's like just
no.
purely to like deceive people to like make money, basically.
Yeah, basically. It made him more popular to lean into the far right stuff that he didn't believe. Like they had him on Fox News earlier, and he was like one of the more left-leaning guys. They bring him in for those debate shows, and now he's, completely gone the other direction. And now he's turning again, now that he's no longer on Fox. He's a little more liberal than he was, or he was challenging Ted Cruz and all that stuff. And it's like, I think he is just doing whatever he thinks is going to get him the most money, and, fine, make your money. But like, yeah, he's tricked a lot of people, Tucker Carlson for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the whole thing is it gets into like this really weird area where you're tricking people, and I don't think that like anybody should be okay with that. I think that to a certain extent, it's like yeah, you have the freedom of speech, but I don't know. I think it really needs to be brought to people's attention that he's just tricking you. Like you know what I mean? He doesn't really believe this stuff, so like you shouldn't either, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard. That's what you're saying. The hardest thing to prove is intent. I mean, there's like that's why they can't ever really do it in criminal trials, and why they've never gotten Trump on like any of the conspiracy to commit like treason or all that stuff, because you just can't prove what they really believe and like what they're actually following through on based on what you think they think. Like people don't write a lot of that stuff down. Most of the times they don't get caught like Alex Jones. So you get in a spot where it's like well, again, it all comes back to the authenticity thing. I have to kind of go with my gut and believe what I believe and hope that other people are being genuine with me. And then if they're not, it sucks. And you just then have to kind of work on yourself and see like, how can I be a better judge of these sort of things? And I mean, ultimately, that's not just in politics, as you said, like in comedy and like every form of public interaction you have with anybody, it's one of the hardest things to do. Is like, is the person I'm talking to a good person? Like, are they just saying whatever because they're talking? It's hard to know.
Well, I mean, that goes back to politics too, right? Like that is kind of like so much of politics is playing some sort of manipulative game with people. And
Yeah,
see, to me, it's like I don't really tend to do that. Like I'm a pretty honest guy.
yeah,
It's almost like hard for me to like be manipulative. So like when I'm having this conversation with you right now, like there's really no
mhm,
part of me. Maybe every once in a while, like I might hide something, but it's like for the
sure,
most part, I am who I am. I'm saying what I believe.
yeah,
So to me, it's kind of like to be some sort of like manipulative mastermind seems so
it's foreign. Yeah,
strange to me. Yeah. And I don't even really, it would be very hard to like go on
yeah.
to a podcast every day or once a week or whatever and basically just be playing some character. It seems crazy to me.
Yeah. And I mean, because that's we're normal people, right? We've led mostly normal lives. We don't have millions of dollars that are insulating us from the communities and all that stuff. And we have to be real with people. And we want to be real with people because that just leads to better interactions in our lives. Because if we're open with people, people are going to be open with us. And that's just, all the equivalent exchange stuff. But you get a lot of these people in power that just haven't had to put themselves out there. So they're just it's a lot easier to not have any consequences in life because you've got who knows what backing you and all that stuff that what gives them the confidence and lets them sleep easier at night because it's like ultimately no harm they feel is really going to come to them. And to kind of put a bow on this and tie it back to the race that I'm running right now. So I'm running, as I said, for assembly in the Central Valley of California, and I'm a Democrat. I'm running against a Republican right now who is in a position very similar to that, where was raised wealthy, represents himself as like a farmer, and that's like one of the most common lies in politics, but whatever. But like the real kicker of this guy, the thing that got me of just like I need to run against this guy, and nobody else is standing up against him. He's a known liar and very corrupt, right? One of his big scandals, because he's got multiple, but the biggest one, um, is so he has represented our district and he's been a member of the Health Oversight Committee, right? So he's in charge of making sure that policies come through our state that don't ultimately favor our health insurance companies, corporations that are making medical equipment, all that stuff, right? Meanwhile, while he's on that committee, he is for years cheating on his wife with a lobbyist for the healthcare industry. And that came out, and it was just the ultimate hypocrisy. And then hundreds of thousands of dollars came out in donations from these health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. So the entire time this guy's claiming to represent us and work on our behalf to protect us from these corporations, he is literally in bed with the lobbyists working against us. And it's like that's one of the most despicable things that somebody can do is lie about that kind of stuff and get away with it. And that was like my impetus of like, yeah, I've got to run against a guy who's doing all of these things because you can't, once that comes out, you can't trust they're ever working for you again.
Was he a Republican or was he a
He's a
Democrat?
Republican,
Yeah.
yeah.
And well, I mean, the whole thing is like I feel like there's like lying and which obviously isn't good, but there's you cheat like in a situation like you cheat on your wife and then she asks you or somebody asks you and you just say no, I didn't do that. That's lying. But then there's like Machiavellian kind of like manipulating where it's like it also is lying, but like you're almost like playing like a different character, which is like really I just wouldn't even be able to do that. But
I
like
know.
if like I'm trying to get something out of you and I'm not necessarily like telling you a lie, but it's like I'm
It's like,
like a psychopath, like somehow trying, like conning you
yeah,
to get something from you. It's like I mean, in a way, obviously the cheating thing is like pretty bad, is like almost on that level too. But in politics, do you feel like you find that people are doing that type of thing to you, or like they're just playing some sort of like weird, or do you even see it on the big stage, like people just totally like complete like they're completely playing a different character as opposed to just like telling a lie.
more often than not, yeah. I think politics is an industry that rewards liars almost more than any other industry, other than maybe like sales or something. I have worked on a number of campaigns where I will meet somebody for the first time who I have known in the political world. And like I've seen their stage persona or them in the house floor, all that stuff, right? And then you get a private moment with them, and they're the biggest jerks you've ever met. Like they're not, as much as they say or they care about the little person, they meet the little person and they have such disdain for them that it's like, I don't care that you voted for me. I don't care that you're here at my community event. I don't need to talk to you because you don't pay me anything, and I don't need to be a person around you. There's more stories than I can count that has happened where it's just like I have no faith that anybody I'm going to meet in politics is a good person anymore because they can hide it so well, all these people, that it's like I it's truly disheartening the kind of people that continue to get elected, and not even the people that just get elected. I think a lot of their staffs are the same way because they'll hire people that are like themselves. And if you're out there representing this person in the community, a lot of them will a lot of be the same way, of like outwardly very kind, and then you get a private moment with them, and it's like I genuinely don't know why you're in this position because to me, I've always, and I know it's very naive, but like it's public service, right? You should be in this job because you want to help people. And that's just so far from a lot of these people's mind that it's like you're clearly in this for yourself. You want to be able to make more money or have more power because, as a result of this. And helping people, if it happens, is like you're like, oh, if it happens, great. But ultimately, that's not my priority. And that's both parties. It's just this industry tends to attract a certain kind of person. And it's really disheartening how many of them continue to get away with it. Or maybe, and I think this is probably the real truth, people know that a lot of these people are liars and people know that a lot of these people are bad people. Everyone hates politicians for a reason, right? But then you have the lesser of two evils, like who's the worst liar between the two? I'll pick the other guy. So then you just get stuck with like, yeah, they're bad, but it could have been worse. And that's also depressing.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of sad to say, but like Gavin Newsom just naturally does come off as that type of kind of
Yeah.
slimy guy, and it's like whereas I would honestly probably say like Biden and like Kamala and Obama to me don't really come off as that type of guy. I mean, do you think that they even probably are some they're even doing that kind of thing, maybe to a
I,
lesser degree or something?
yeah, I mean, at this point in my political career, I just have to assume everybody's doing it at some degree. But I tend to agree. There's worse offenders than Biden and Obama and Kamala. I do believe that they're probably good people. Biden, I think in particular, I think a lot of his stories have just come out about him, like when there wasn't cameras around or when he was very early in his career. And like I think the fact that he had so much early tragedy in his life, I do believe he's probably a better person than most people in politics. But I do think he's one of the exceptions. I think everybody does it to some degree. Is probably the truth.
You almost kind of have to in order just to like play play the game. I heard
Yeah.
like one like weird story about him that I it's probably not even true, but it was on a podcast where like about Biden, where somebody like they dropped him off or whatever. I think maybe in the White House or whatever. And then they like
Yeah.
left, and then when they came back for some reason to give him something or whatever, and he was like just standing there like naked, and like supposedly he like I don't know if it was like dementia or something or
I
like
don't
what.
that's probably not true. I think it'd be pretty hard to get away with being completely naked with as much staff as there are in the White House. And people don't know, White House staff is not political staff. They just work in the White House. So if there's somebody that saw Joe Biden naked, there's probably a lot of Republicans that work at the White House that would have taken pictures of that. So that probably didn't happen, but Yeah, he
So
wasn't
like
doing great.
you can't even like really get away with stuff. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Yeah, maybe it wasn't in the White House, but you can't even get away with stuff in the White House. Like that's like where he
Probably not.
lives, right? But
Yeah,
somebody might see you, some Republican might see you and telling you. So it's like you always kind of got to be like watching your back to a certain extent.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, the Machiavellian thing is weird to me, but it's like then it kind of gets into like you said about that one guy who like you know like the type of person who's like pretending to be nice to somebody just to get something from him, or they don't care
Mhm.
about you and they're like a celebrity or something. Like if you're bothering a celebrity and he's kind of just like not a nice person, like get away from me. It's like well, obviously he's like a celebrity. He's probably bothered all the time. It kind of makes sense, but
True.
you almost wonder like though if it's I think there's like probably a separation here, but like if it's just happening in the moment, I think what really gets bad is when it's like you kind of go into the situation knowing you're going to con the person, whereas
Yeah, that's
if you're
true.
doing like you're acting naturally in the moment, you know what I mean? It's kind of like how I don't know. It's like you might be a dick to somebody just because you're like not in a good mood, and then you know what I mean. But
Yeah, there's
I mean I see your
certainly
point on your situation. I'm just saying in general, like when people do this kind of stuff, it could just be moment to moment kind of decisions, or is it kind of like they thought it like almost like they thought everything out and they're like, I'm gonna totally con
yeah. And I
my
mean,
way through this.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I'm sure you do catch people on bad days and they're going to give you the worst version of themselves in that moment, but they're not truly like that.
Yeah.
But I think enough of those moments add up that it's probably who those people are based on,
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I've seen and heard. But also, and you're right, more importantly, what are they doing in closed door meetings when they're talking with lobbyists, when they're drafting bills, and what do they actually vote on versus what do they say in public? That stuff is just as bad too. And if you, again, mileage will vary depending on which politician you have and representing you, but by and large, I think what people say and what people vote on, I don't want to say that everybody is lying all the time because I think a lot of times it just works out that what you believe is also the popular thing and you get to just vote for your beliefs most of the time because there's not a huge amount of difference between like the average Democratic politician's views and the average Democratic voter's views on a bunch of different issues. Like they ultimately probably agree on like animal welfare or general like we should bring down prices or there's a lot of that stuff. It's the issues that people aren't really tuned in on that I think those are the ones that people are going to be able to say like, okay, I can really vote my heart on some tax loophole or something that would favor my area above the rest of the state. That those kind of things.
Okay. So like you obviously probably heard about like the Bill Maher meeting with Trump.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Bill Maher, like, well, first of all, do you somebody like Bill Maher, like he kind of comes off as like he tells it how it is, and
Yeah.
he's just pretty honest. Like, do you feel like he is one of those guys who is being honest? And then also his meeting with Trump, and that was a two-parter, but I just want to get both in there.
Hmm.
He kind of was like, yeah, like Trump is a really like charming guy in person, and like I know he's not on the stage, but in
Yeah.
my opinion, that's kind of like a bad sign. But he seems to think like he had some. You would probably know who the guy is. It was a liberal YouTuber. I'm forgetting his name, but and that guy was like, yeah, that's kind of like a bad thing that he was like, he's two different people. Like, why is he doing that? That's the whole Machiavellian thing. Like he wants the
Yeah.
crowd to think something, and then he wants you to think something. Like he's not the same person.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess just in general, his meeting on Trump. But then also, do you feel like Bill Maher, or somebody like Bill Maher or Sam Harris are more honest? Because I mean, I definitely kind of get
Yeah.
an honest vibe from Bill Maher and Sam Harris.
It's hard to say, right? I mean, we can
Yeah,
speculate as much as we
yeah.
want about a lot of these public figures. At the end of the day, we don't know them, right? So it's hard to say. He comes off as honest to me too. I think usually when you're a little older, it's harder to lie because you end up just not caring as much about what people perceive you, or maybe it's easier to lie. I don't know. I guess that
And you
kind of
maybe
cuts
don't
both
remember
ways.
everything that you said, so you're
That's
like,
also
you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would agree with that point of like I think the conversations that you would have with a stranger should be relative to the same person that you are when you're having a conversation with somebody that you know. You shouldn't be trying to put up a front with people if that's not who you really are. But if you do it, there's a reason you do it. And it's because you don't believe that your honest self is the most marketable or the version that people are going to like the most. Uh, so if somebody is doing that, I would agree. I think that's probably a bad thing because what are you hiding and why are you hiding it? And if you're aware that you're not this person in real life and you're not making those changes to become like a better person and all that stuff, I think that really says something about you, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think he still kind of stands by his decision to go do that. And like, I think like,
Yeah.
some people have spoken out, like Larry David said it was like a dinner, he wrote a thing saying like my dinner with Hitler or whatever. Like, do
Yeah.
you feel like it's a bad idea to go meet with Trump, or like I guess would you want to meet if you got an opportunity to meet him and have dinner with him and talk to him? Do you think it's a good idea to do that in general?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any problem with people having conversations with Trump or any of those figures. I mean, it's ultimately not going to change anything one way or the other, right? If you're going to have a conversation, even if you're kind or not kind or whatever, say what you're going to say to them. I think access is probably a better thing to have than not, because if you're going to be able to talk to somebody who's in that position, it can't hurt that you would get their ear for a minute, right? I mean, I think people need to be a little more, or rather, I'd be a little less panicked about like normalizing this or normalizing that in terms of like platforming Trump. Like Trump has a platform. If you talk to him or you don't talk to him, he's going to do what he's going to do. But he's also one of those guys that like he does kind of believe a little bit more the last thing he heard versus, something that he may have said he believed a week ago. He watches TV all the time, and he'll always talk about like one of the last things that he saw on Fox News, and like this is one of the most important issues in our country. And whether it is or not, right, in the moment he believes that because he's kind of just going off of what somebody just said to him because he's got one of those kind of minds. And if you could be in that position where you're talking about something really passionately and Trump's like, oh, I never really thought about that, or maybe I'll look into that. I think that could only be a good thing, right? And if he disagrees with you and says like, I don't care about that and I don't like you, okay, well, if you didn't like Trump anyway and you didn't want to have a continued relationship with him regardless, then no harm, no foul here.
Yeah, kind of like whisper things in his ears. Like that would almost be like kind of like like play the Machiavellian part on like the other side. And
Yeah, I have no problems with that.
yeah, I mean, like when I asked you the question, like, do you think it's all right to do that? It's like, I mean, I definitely do. I think that he did actually get like a lot of backlash for it, right? I mean, I
Hmm.
think that, and I think that's part of the problem with the liberal movement is I think they do a lot of that kind of stuff, which I think a lot of people look at from the other side, or even maybe the liberal side is kind of being dumb. It's like, no, he should be. Maybe it's a good idea, like you just said, for him to go have dinner with them and get information from him, or give him information, and
Yeah.
you can't just like not ever talk to people. Even though I probably wouldn't really necessarily want to, but
Yeah, there's benefits to be had there. And like I think it'd be hypocritical for me to say that I wouldn't have conversations with those people because as I said, I'm in a Republican area right now and the places that I'm running is very conservative. I'm gonna have to talk to a lot of conservative people if I want to win. And it's not even about just me wanting to win, right? Although obviously I do. It's about wanting to connect with people and see where people are at and like what's the best representation we can give to people, right? You have to be able to have conversations with people to figure out where they're at and where they're coming from. You can make your assumptions, and your assumptions may be right, may be wrong, but you're never going to know until you actually talk to people. People have all sorts of beliefs for all sorts of reasons, and you can have an idea in your head that could be way off. Even if you know what they believe, you probably don't know why they believe it. And we need to understand where people are coming from, and we need to kind of get like how can we help people if we don't know what they want or where they're coming from. That's ultimately, I think, where it needs to come down. It's like, it's very easy to say, don't talk to that person because they believe X. And one, people's opinions change all the time, right? I think, especially if it's an issue that doesn't really matter to them. if you're able to make a convincing case or even just kind of hear them out on something, or maybe they haven't really thought it through and they talk it out with you maybe for the first time out loud, and they're like, actually, I don't, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm not sure I actually believe it, but it's something that I feel. And then you offer something and it's like, yeah, I'd be fine to do something like that. Instead, I think uh, those conversations are incredibly valuable on a lot of different issues, and closing yourself down to not being open to a conversation doesn't benefit you or them ultimately.
Yeah, like I think that I would ultimately probably have it. And I think we had this. I had this conversation with somebody like a while ago about like Kanye West. I think it was even before the more recent stuff. But I
Hmm.
think ultimately, I think that I would probably have anybody on the podcast. I mean, just about anybody, like even Kanye West, because it's like try and get his perspective why he's doing what he's doing. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I think ultimately that's a good thing. Yeah. So real quick, well, I guess we'll just go through some things pretty quickly because I think I was my fiance just got home, so I probably have to go pretty soon.
Yeah, I think I'd have to
Um,
wrap it up here too.
yeah. Okay, so let's just go through a couple things real quick, and then we'll just wrap it up.
Okay.
One I was going to ask you earlier. Well, let's just go over the left side of the. I don't even know what you would call them, YouTubers or broadcasters or whatever. We kind of covered the right side a little bit. Do you feel like the left's doing as good of a job as I would probably say no? I can't even think of many people on the left that like Sam Cedar comes to. I don't listen to him, but Sam Cedar, or like
Hassan's the other big one.
Hassan, who I mean, I don't really watch his stuff, but he seems to be, or Destiny, which
Hmm.
has seemed to be coming under like some. I don't know if you heard about his like stuff, but
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot less prominent liberal people on YouTube and Twitch and podcasts. And it's interesting you brought that up because I think the ones that do get very popular, they're always under fire for something because there's different standards for the left and right that makes it very hard to succeed on a platform like YouTube or Twitch if you have that sort of fan base. And again, I'm not saying that you can't hold people to standards. Obviously, you got to hold people to standards, but it makes it harder to succeed when you have to talk about things a certain way. You have to have certain things in your past that if we as a Democratic Party were really serious about like, we have to get our own Joe Rogan, they would have to operate very differently on the media level than they are right now. They have to be okay with a lot more things and people not being as perfect as I think we all want them to be. They have to accept more imperfections than they're currently willing to right now, or else we're just gonna keep losing this battle.
yeah. Well, the funny thing about Joe Rogan is like I don't necessarily like everyone just assumes automatically that he's like some
That's that
gnarly
too, yeah.
Republican, and he kind of is at this point. And he comes off that way, but at one point he endorsed like Bernie, and like
Yeah.
he has said that he's pretty much been liberal, but at the same time I get the point.
Yeah,
And
he's more
I
of an
do think
open-minded
that
guy. You're right, than a lot of people give
yeah,
him credit for.
yeah,
Ultimately, recently, I think he's been on more of a rightward kick, but
yeah,
yeah, he was more left-leaning at the start than I think a lot of people remember. But because the liberal audience, I think, held as many standards as they did and enforced them onto him and his podcast, at a certain point, if I were to guess, I think he's just like, it's not worth engaging with this anymore. I'm just going to go to the other side because it's just less of a hassle.
yeah. And what do you think about like H3, like Ethan Klein?
Oh man, he's got a lot of personal stuff that I think makes him very hard to root for. I think.
Like what?
Well, I mean, like, did you ever see like that debate he did with Sam Cedar? And like, he set it up as like this is going to be like an Israel versus Palestine kind of debate, and then ultimately he just went like so personal on the guy and just like went off on all these sort of tangents. I think he's got a lot of like mental health stuff that makes it like
Yeah,
I don't know what his politics are right now. I think he's got a lot to sort out personally, but like before a lot of that stuff happened, he was very appealing to a lot of my liberal friends because he was a funny guy and he would speak about a lot of issues openly and he wouldn't be concerned about coming across a certain way. Or recently, I think he, like I said, for unfortunately went off kind of a personal health deep end. But for a while there, I think he was a pretty important media figure.
yeah. It's I don't. The thing is, I don't listen to his podcast either, because
Hmm.
it'll be like a 3 to 4 hour podcast and we'll say we're going to talk about whatever the headline is, and then it's like 2 hours in and they haven't even like brought it up, and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and it's just like him and
His wife, yeah.
his wife and then the other people in there like just kind of shooting the shit casually, and it's like, dude, like, I don't know, with some of these guys it's like, dude, get to the fucking point already, you know what I
Have a
mean?
little
Like,
respect for your audience. Yeah.
exactly, you're a millionaire, but meanwhile he has 20 to 40,000 people listening live, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like,
donations are coming in, and he's incentivized to keep it going.
I guess whatever he's doing is working. But then the next topic would be, I guess, would be the Israel versus Palestine, and speaking of the is Hassan and Ethan
Hmm.
beef or whatever they had over it. Um, but then a lot of people that I've talked to who are on the left side have said that they don't really like Kamala or Biden because of how they handle that situation. How do you feel about that? And yeah, that whole situation.
I think it's perfectly valid for people to feel that way. I mean, I also am not happy with the way that they handled that. I, definitely support Palestine in the conflict more than the Democratic Party and the government does as well. And I think it's both this particular issue is sad to see them kind of trivialize the death of a lot of children and innocent people in this conflict, but it's also representing a larger issue of like, what do they prioritize? What is the most important thing for the government in this conflict? Is it the loss of life? Are they trying to stop people from dying? Are they trying to minimize the suffering? Or are they more concerned about prioritizing their connection and their alliance with Israel and their long-term like trade agreements or their long-term political alliances? And that's, I think, as devastating as it is to lose a lot of these cities, literal cities of people, right, to bombing daily from Israel, it it also represents just a general callousness of like what is being prioritized and what do you want to talk about? What are you willing to confront with people? How honest are you willing to be? That it's like, yes, look, we have alliances with Israel and we have long-standing partnerships with them, but we need to be willing to call them out when they're doing something wrong that we don't agree with, or we have to be able to force them to reconcile with the harms that their actions are causing. And to do that, maybe we make them pay for their own missiles as opposed to giving them all the stuff that we've been giving them, subsidizing their foreign aid and, you know, continuing to prop up financially all of the stuff that is happening. It's like you, Biden and Kamala will say these are tragedies and we should do everything we can to avoid them while continuing to sign, bills and checks that basically fund all of this stuff. And so it's like, what do you really believe on this? And if you're willing to lie about something as important as this, I think it's completely valid for people to say, like, that's what cost me the vote for Biden or Kamala because I just can't trust them on anything anymore.
Do you think they're just kind of in a situation where like they couldn't really get out of doing what they were doing? They just kind of had to
I
do it.
think I think people need to have if that is what they felt like, and I think they probably did, I think they need to be a little more assertive about American power. I'm not one of those guys that thinks America needs to insert themselves into every conflict abroad, or the opposite, we need to be completely isolationist. But America is very powerful. If we're very rich on a world scale, and when we do something, people take notice and people tend to follow, and that can be good or that can be bad. And if we're saying something is okay and we're going along with it, then it's very hard to stop that momentum worldwide. If we don't go along with something and we think that something is not going well, then we can push that momentum back in the other way too. And I think it's not often thought about that way. It's often said like, because we're doing something, we have to keep doing something on the global scale because that's the way the momentum's going. Momentum will change when America makes their opinions known. And I think we need to test that more often. And this is one of those cases.
Do you think that we probably should have just tried to prevent it as opposed to fueling it? Kind of. Is that what you
Yeah,
think we should
because
have done?
at the minimum, we should say, Israel, you're not getting any more of our money for military purposes until you stop bombing Gaza. And we never did that.
Yeah. And then the last topic, real quick, would be the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Like, do you? It seems like it's kind of died down a bit, right? But do you think that that's ever going to come out to haunt Trump, or do you think it's just going to be one of those things that just never really gets like
Man,
resolved?
I hope that gets resolved. That was an
I do
interesting
too.
political moment where it's just everybody was in agreement. Release the files. We want to see what's in them, and
Yeah.
then we'll prove once and for all what happened, at least with some amount of clarity. We're never going to know everything that happened in this. And now, whether we get specifically the files or if there are the files out there, who knows what actually even exists in the government's hands right now at this point. I think it will come back around because victims are still out there and talking about these things, and they're not going to have this go away. They have very powerful platforms and lawyers, and I think that people are going to be continue to be interested in what has happened to them and seeing justice served, because ultimately that's the real tragedy with a lot of this stuff is like Epstein died, and then there was never any real justice or reckoning with like how deep does a lot of this go? Who was all involved in this? And what can we do to prevent this sort of thing from happening again? They got Maxwell locked up, and that's great. But who knows if that's even going to last now at this point, right? It's looking like she may get a pardon or early release, and there's no way it was just the two of them that were involved in this stuff, right? That's why people want the files. That's why people are interested in this stuff because we want to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again, and we punish the people who are involved in this one as best we can. Um, we've never really seen a real end to a lot of the stuff that we saw with Weinstein or Cosby and all these sexual predators never really got the punishment that I think we would have liked them to get.
Well,
And
Weinstein did,
yeah,
right?
well, even then, it's like he's in prison for now, and but it didn't happen until he was like 70 something years old, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's justice and it's the best we can do right now. But how long do people know about this stuff? Decades. And nothing was ever done. And he continued to make very popular movies and get all this money and get all of this fame. And it's like, sure, he's in jail now, and he's being punished, and that's great. And that's the way the justice system works once we catch these people. But how do we let it get this far? And now it's kind of the same thing with the Epstein thing. They had Epstein locked up in like the early 2000s and they let him go.
Yeah.
So it's just how can we make these situations better? And how can we ensure that like we're rooting this stuff out at the base? And if we ignore it and we say like, oh, there was no list, or oh, actually, Trump wasn't involved in this, or like all that stuff is horrific in a number of ways. But I hope that it does get revisited. I hope that, the media doesn't drop the bone on this. I hope they continue to chase as much of the story as they can because it's really heartbreaking that it did get abandoned as quickly as it did after um, who knows what was the reason everybody dropped it, but it suddenly disappeared from the news and it's just like, but nothing got resolved, nothing changed.
Yeah, there's definitely a problem. And I mean, like you said, there's so many victims that you think like, where are all of, because I mean, I think there was what, 200 more where like, where are all, I know some of them came out, but have the
Yeah.
other ones just been silenced or something? It's like,
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of them don't want to talk because it was horribly horrific what they went through. But I mean,
yeah,
they should be able to have a way to tell their story, either, anonymously through the courts or whatever, that like, yeah, you have to hope that they weren't. But I mean, some of the victims that we know about did kill themselves after all this stuff came out. So who knows?
yeah. And then do you personally think that, I know we don't really know, but like Trump or Clinton or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess the main big names were like were to
Yeah,
blame. They did
I think they
stuff.
definitely were. I think it's pretty clear the evidence is out there
It's
that
such a weird thing because it's like I just don't really understand like why they would even be into that type of thing. If it was, I mean, I guess there could have been, maybe it wasn't necessarily
power is
under it
just, a
power, but I
corrupting
mean,
thing.
it's just like, it just isn't like, I don't know, like the idea of being into girls under 18 is just so bizarre to me. But yet, like, there's so many of these powerful guys who
I know. It's
seem to
wild.
be into it. I guess that almost sounds like a conspiracy theory that, like, oh, all these powerful guys are really into that. It seems kind of
I
like
mean,
does
you hope
power
it
really do
is.
that to you? Makes you want to hook up with
underage girls, you know? It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing we don't understand it, right? But like, yeah, you have to hope it's a conspiracy theory, but like, there's just so much evidence at this point that it's like, yeah, even though I don't get it, and I never will get it, and I don't want to get it, yeah, I guess they probably did it. Like, all the evidence is pointing in that way. So, yeah,
Just bizarre. But yeah, I actually listened to a guy. I forgot the guy's name, but he was on Tucker Carlson to go over. I don't normally listen to Tucker Carlson, but I wanted to hear the Epstein
yeah,
stuff, and he just went over Epstein's whole thing. And yeah, it was pretty bizarre. Oh yeah, what he said was is everybody like knew the name of the plane was, you know, Lolita Express, and everybody knew what was going on. So
yeah,
even if they were, they obviously were like, oh, I don't think Trump was the type of guy who would do that, but Clinton was, though, you know. But they're like, even if they didn't know, even if they didn't do anything, they knew what was going on, and that in
that's bad
itself
enough.
is bad enough, really. Yeah, to be friends with a guy like that. Yeah. So lastly, like, well, you're not even really doing your comedy anymore, right? So just the political stuff. But I wanted to ask you about the comedy. Where
Yeah.
did you said you worked for that company? Where did you perform? Was it just within that like company's network, or were you actually going to have you performed with any big names or anything like that? Or
No, unfortunately not. It was just through that company. So Comedy Sports has different stations throughout, or different theaters throughout the world. There's a few in California. There's one in Sacramento and one in San Jose, and I performed at both of those. But I would do shows there multiple times a week for, like I said, mostly families. And I did that for about 5 years. And once the pandemic came around, opportunities really dried up. The theater had a really hard time surviving. And so my career took a different path after the pandemic, so I never really got back into it, and the theater since has closed down. But yeah, that's what I was doing. I was doing improv comedy for 5 years.
and it was a sports company, I'm assuming, right?
So comedy sports was called that because they played comedy like a sport. It was a more like misleading thing than we got a lot of questions about it. It was two teams of improv performers going against each other, taking turns.
But at specific locations that were there, as you didn't really ever
Yes.
perform at like
Yeah. We had a
other.
theater that we would perform at, and I didn't do like stuff at like an open mic or whatever anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. And then do you have anything up on YouTube or anything for that, for the
Oh
comedy stuff?
man. No, I think it was all wiped when the company went under. I think they got rid of everything.
Okay. And then you're running for the assembly. Where can we find you on that? And then I don't really know what you want to like plug or whatever. Like, can people like go out and vote for you, or like,
Yeah, so the election's in 2026. There's going to be the primary first in June. So I'm getting a very early start on this because the guy I'm running against has a lot more name recognition and a lot more money. So I'm out here very early talking to people. I do have a website up. I'll send you the link, however you want to display that. But my name's Matthew Adams, so you can search Matthew Adams Assembly Lodi and you'll find it. Matthew Adams is unfortunately a very common name. So I had to put all those other qualifiers in there. Or you can search Adams for Assembly and my Instagram will come up because that's, I think, a little bigger. And that'll have a link to the website too.
okay, and how big is the position that you're running for? Because I don't know nothing about like the different positions. Is it like
Yeah.
is on city level or state
So
level?
it's on like basically a county level, I would say. There's a couple of counties included in there, but it's basically just like one county's worth of people. So it's a state level position that is very similar to Congress in that we work on laws and we, vote on cabinet for the state and that sort of stuff, perform executive oversight. And there's two houses, just like in Congress, there's the Senate and then there's the House. Same thing in California. There's the Senate and then there's the Assembly. So Assembly is the lower house of the legislative branch, and it represents roughly a county of people.
Okay, that's all confusing to me. But so yeah, the last thing that I'll have to chat GPT, like all of that. I always get confused on the different sections. But
Yeah.
so yeah, the last thing that I always ask is your anything that you're into in terms of music, music, movies, TV shows, podcasts, books, really anything that you're into that you want to throw out there.
Something I want to turn people onto that I'm watching right now or something like that.
Yeah, I know it's a weird question, but it's just I guess I'm always looking for podcasts or TV shows or movies, and I like to kind of like hear what other people are into. So
Well, I watch a lot of anime. Do you watch anime?
no.
Oh man. That's where I spend most of my media watching habits, as I've been watching a lot of anime recently. But I watch in terms of podcasts, are you in the NBA? Do you follow them?
No.
Dang. All right. Let me see. One more three strikes and I'm out here. Do you listen
It's
to
fine though.
pod?
Whatever you're into.
Yeah. Well, I'll just talk about the NBA stuff because that's probably more interesting to people than the anime stuff. There's a great podcast network. It's called Locked On NBA that they have like local team coverage for like all 30 teams. So they have like 30 episodes that they put out every day from all the different teams and then their own national podcast too. I do a lot of driving for my job, so I'm always looking for like what's something that I can put on that I haven't heard before that's not the same couple of songs or the same podcast that I would just play over and over again. And the Locked On NBA network has like all sorts of great local coverage. So I think they're pretty cool. If you're into the NBA at all, a lot of people aren't familiar with them, and they do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I do a lot of driving too, so I'm always listening to
Hmm.
stuff and looking for stuff and but that's good. Yeah, so thanks for coming on, Matthew, and then yeah, I'll just talk with you real quick after this and then we'll go from there. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Thanks.